Good morning, everyone. We'll call this morning's meeting to order for the Board of Commissioners for Tuesday, September 7th. The first item is the approval of the agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Mojo, second by Commissioner Gross. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens to be heard today on items not on the agenda? No online comments? Very good. We will move into employee recognitions, and we have one today. Rory Schmitz. This is presented in grateful recognition for 15 years of outstanding and dedicated service to Clay County and its citizens. We're going to do a little elbow bump here, Darren. And then, Steve, you want to, here's your file. Thank you. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're extremely fortunate to have someone as knowledgeable and as experienced as Rory. He's one of the departments that really is established to serve the employees here, and he's just done a wonderful job. He's focused on customer service and also keeping all of our infrastructure safe from the bad guys. And so we're extremely happy to have them. We found he's very well respected by his staff, by the people here on the campus, and through the hiring process, we found out that he's also very well respected in our region. So congratulations, Rory. We're fortunate to have you.
All right.
Walk this way.
Okay.
Has any fun.
What's that?
I said, I don't think that department has any fun.
No. All right, we will move on now to the approval of the bills and vouchers, please.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ebinger, second by Commissioner Cayley. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Approval of minutes from August 17th.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gross, second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. With that, we'll go into our 8:35 item, which is a public hearing regarding condemnation action to determine damages relevant to the Goehring property on County State Highway number 8. And I know that,
One.
or County 1, excuse me. I'm so used to talking about County Road 8 that recently.
Maybe it was wrong on the packet.
Yeah, no, County Road 1. We have Dave and Justin here, and Bryan, maybe you want to kind of open this up for us, and
You
I.
need a motion.
Oh, yeah, and I
Right,
know,
I'd
yeah,
like to
that's
do
right,
it
and I
first.
know that Carl is here, yeah, so we'd need a motion.
I need a motion, make a motion to open the hearing.
All right,
Second the motion.
we have a motion by Commissioner Gross, second by Commissioner Mojo. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion carried. Okay, Bryan, you want to give a little brief background?
Yeah.
We obviously we're familiar with it, but you can.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do, just within attachment D, I included a couple things within the packet. The first being the Clay County Board of Commissioners Resolution 2021-23, which you did sign or vote and sign back on April 27th, 2021, just indicating that the board was in favor of looking at moving forward with condemnation action regarding State Aid Highway 1 and the specific property involving Carl Goehring. Mr. Goehring's here today. He'll have a chance to speak, or I'd ask that he will have a chance to speak here at some point. The second exhibit is just the actual land for the tracks, the three parcels that we're looking at for condemnation, those sections, that's the description of those. And then finally, the third item is the order. So based on the resolution that the court Court, sorry, the resolution that the board passed back on April 27th. We then did take the matter to Clay County District Court and asked for and received ultimately an order finding that the matter was a necessity and there was it's a public purpose and necessary to move forward, looking at then condemnation of the land that we're talking about involving Mr. Goehring. What I would expect or what I would ask from the board, Mr. Chair, would, as you said, Dave Overbo and Justin Soren were here from the highway. I expect they'll give you some information. I've included a sheet just for the board's information that has some of the information on number 8 of what I expect they'll present or what the cost and some of the appraisal they had. And then I would expect that you would give Mr. Goehring an opportunity to speak. And then ultimately, it would be, we'd be looking from this board to come out of here, out of a value of what the board would expect and the county would expect to pay to Mr. Goehring if the approval of the condemnation action happens. So both approving that the condemnation would go forward and what cost would actually occur. And then ultimately, the board will have to do written findings, which I can help the board complete. But what we need coming out of here would be a vote, or whether it's unanimous or not, but just a decision on how much would ultimately be paid. So
And you want, and that decision should be today?
that decision should be today, so that we know that coming out of the board, and then we include that in the findings.
All right. Okay, with that, Dave, do you want to go first? Do you have, is it, do we want to put that land, do you have stuff, can you put that up on the land?
It'll be in the PowerPoint.
Okay, you have power, okay, good.
Yeah, in talking with Bryan a little bit, we put together a little PowerPoint with some explanations on the project and as well as the land and the parcel that not only that we need today, but the remainder, a little information on the rest of it as well. As you can see, this is for County State Aid Highway number 1. We started working on this a couple years ago. We do need to acquire several parcels, and maybe if we'll just get going here. Here's an overhead showing the 2-mile segment of roadway. It's in Oakport Township. It starts at 70th Avenue and it goes up to, is it 90th Avenue?
County Road
Yeah,
26.
County Road 26. So it's a 2-mile section of roadway. Maybe the next screen there. As you can see, we did get an appraisal from Roger Tingham of Tingham Appraisals. Since I've been here in 20 years, we've only used 2 different appraisers. We used Tom Barth for many, many years. Tom retired and we started using Roger Tingham. Seems like he's very knowledgeable in what he does, and most everything that he's ever done, I kind of always do a little check with our own county assessor just to make sure that because if the numbers are, if we're too cheap, we're not going to be able to acquire any land, and we're going to be here with every parcel. And from everything I heard, that his numbers seemed like they were good according to our county appraiser. The appraisal started, or was actually completed in April of 2020. As you can see, farmland or croppable land was valued at $5,000 per acre. And rural residential or yard site acres was valued at $20,000 per acre. I believe there's 2 parcels that are in the $20,000 per acre category today, and then 1 parcel, the larger parcel is croppable land. So we need a complete total of 19 parcels in order to complete the project. And there's 13 different landowners, so some people own multiple parcels here. We did acquire 16 of the 19 parcels to date. And the cost from those 12 landowners for those 16 parcels was $35,075. I've got just a picture there of the cover page of the appraisal book from Roger Tingham. Every landowner are they given an actual book? So he puts together.
More tailored towards their person.
Right, so not a complete book on everything, but everyone gets their own book with regard to their parcels. So they get the information on how we come about putting this together. The next page, you can see that's our 16 different landowners and the parcels that they've got. Next page there is the parcels 8, 9, and 10 are specific to Mr. Goehring's property. Parcel number 8 is 5 feet wide by 157 feet long. And I do have pictures here a little bit later you can see. That one, you know, it's a very small amount of acres. It's .01 acres. At $20,000 per acre, it ends up being $360. Parcel number 9 is another 5-foot strip by 157 feet. And the reason they're so symmetric is because they're actually part of an older subdivision. So it's that, you know, most parcels are this unique and specific, but these ones are in an actual, it's a platted parcel of land, so it needs to be valued as rural residential due to that plat. And there again, that one's valued at $360. And then the next parcel, number 10, is more of a field or pasture land. That's 12 feet wide, what we need, by 664 feet long, .183 acres, and it's valued at $5,000 per acre for a total of $915.
Dave, can you explain why that one area would need 12 feet and the others needs something less than that?
Yeah, Justin, you want to make?
Yeah, so the setbacks, when they actually probably, as you can see on this map, the actual right-of-way is further to the, we have more right-of-way along those two parcels, so I'm
Okay.
assuming that when the subdivision was approved,
Okay.
that there was a further setback from the highway.
And all of this is needed to establish the proper grade slope?
Right.
Correct.
You want to go back to that the very first one, sheet number 1. If you take a look there, you can see the white edge line. In an ideal world, what we tried to do many years ago is if we could have just went in and ground up the roadway and put it back together, but you can't do that. Once you do that improvement, you got to follow the state aid standards, and I'll get into that at the end of the PowerPoint, but according to the volume of traffic out there, you got to have a 4-foot shoulder. So as you can see now, we don't have a 4-foot shoulder, so that's the whole reason on why everything got pushed out a little bit. So this overhead here just kind of give it a little visual of, you can kind of see the platted, the two parcels on the south there, 8 and 9, those are part of an existing plat, and then parcel number 10 is part of that field piece there. So that's what it looks like there. And then the next couple of slides, as you can kind of see, there's parcel number 8. It's on the north side or south side of that 74th Avenue, I think it is. And then parcel number 9 is just across the road from it, and those ones are both 157 feet long. Parcel number 10 is just to the next section of land there to the north. I think it's either pasture or alfalfa land and potentially subdivided at some point, but in today's, in the GIS today, it's not in a subdivision or anything. So the next sheet, that's our right-of-way document there, that when our staff puts together the ownerships and the amount of land that we need and the landowner lists and that, we make up a nice little colored right-of-way drawing that we, you know, if we go out, kind of keeps us organized, kind of shows where all the different land is. And you can see the 5 feet on parcel 8, 5 feet on parcel 9, and then the 12 feet on parcel 10. And I think kind of what Justin was saying was when that land got subdivided there in that plat, a lot of times it's common to acquire a little bit more right-of-way during that platting process. So there was probably some additional land that was in the plat for the roadway when they did that. So that would account for that difference there. The roadway section itself is no different in that area. There's not any wider. Sometimes if the lay of the land, if it's pretty flat out there, so that's not the case, but that would be the other cases. If there was a hill or something, sometimes things get out wider, but if you want to go to the next one, there's our design data there that we put things together. As you can see, there's 821 cars out there today. We always need to design for a 20-year lifespan so that we don't design and then the very next year you're out of spec with it. So they make us design our roads to a 20-year lifespan. So we designed to our 1,068 cars per day. Didn't make any difference. So we're in the same category, and you'll see on the next slide. Minimum design standards do call for an 11 or 12-foot lane. I don't think I've ever designed with an 11-foot lane, and I certainly would never on a paved roadway. Maybe on a very low volume gravel roadway, we would maybe consider that. But so we went with kind of our typical minimum standard 12-foot driving lane and 4-foot shoulders. And it's needs to be designed at 10-ton per axle. There again, we don't design any paved roads to anything but 10-ton anymore.
All CSAH roads are 10-ton.
Right. The next page comes right out of our MnDOT standards, as you can see there. On the far left, there is the projected average daily traffic column, and for the range of 750 to 1499, which would be the range today and the range 20 years from now that we've designed for. 11 or 12 foot is a minimum lane width, and then a minimum shoulder width is 4 feet. And then it's, surfacing must be paved due to that amount of traffic and to 10 ton. So like I said, we're following the bare minimum standards that we can. The last slide I have there is basically just shows the typical section. So you can see the 12-foot driving lanes and 4-foot shoulder with a 2-foot slope. We've got a clear zone that there can't be anything within that clear zone. So if a car were to go off the roadway, they would hit it and you'd have an unsafe condition. So is there anything I missed, Justin, that you want to add?
I don't think so. I think you did a pretty good job at it.
So, Dave, you provided us with a summary of the appraisal. I think for the public hearing documentation, I would like to see the entire appraisal put in as part of the record. I think that would be good just to have it.
Right, yep, we've got a scanned copy PDF of that, so we can certainly do that.
Okay, does that complete your,
Yes, unless there's any other questions.
Carl, do you want to come up? Good morning. If you want to, yeah, I think that light on your microphone is green, right?
Yeah.
You're good, okay.
Morning. Basically, I disagreed with the appraisal to start with, and I've had convoluting information coming back and forth. The appraiser, Tingham, and some of the paperwork that I got from the county to have a secondary appraisal kind of fell through because none of the appraisers in the area wanted to go against Mr. Tingham. They either had some conflict of interest or whatever else, but my disagreement is the fact that we purchased all of this land years ago for future development. I mean, as an investment. So when it comes back at $20,000, units 8 and 9 are joined lots, I believe. I mean, 14, 15, and 1 and 2 in a different subdivision. So when we bought these in the Broadmoor subdivision, we did it with the intention that in the future it's going to be developed. Well, they're obviously developing right across the road from us right now. So the lots,
Well, just, Carl, when you say that, just for the board, because I'm not sure if they're familiar, but, so just to the southeast of you.
southeast, approximately a quarter mile from number 8.
Yeah, kitty corner from that
Yeah,
corner lot.
kitty corner, yep. So they're developing down there right now. So there's 43 homes being put into that subdivision. And I was using another subdivision as far as informational, was a mile east of us, right down 70th Avenue, Rainbow something. It used to be Atherton's.
Yeah, I remember it as Atherton.
So 10 years ago, those lots were selling for $35,000 an acre. Well, we're being taxed at like $33,000, $33,006 per lot for the 8 and 9. So when they came back with the appraisal, and the appraisal is pretty bland, in my view, there's no sales, there's nothing to compare it to, so you didn't have any input on it. You can see that when you get your copy. The rainbows were going for $35,000 an acre 10 years ago. So the stuff across the road, southeast of us, I'm just going off what the sign says. I didn't look up anything as far as tax values, but 1 acre lots were going for approximately 44 or 49,000, depending on which location it was on the plat. And then a 3 acre piece was going for 149 or 159. So my calculation was that these lots 8 and 9, even though they're breaking them down, which I can't really do because they're 1.7 and 1.8, I just came up with the value of the $35,000 per acre So I came up with 76,000, they came up with 20,000. But that was their 1 acre part. So just doubling that, I was trying to review all the rules and all the regulations, but if I was gonna sell it today, which I've already had offers for $75,000 for those lots, which I don't intend to sell just yet because I don't want any neighbors. But that land, I'm valuing those 2 lots each at 75,000. Then the egg land, which is just north of it, all of this is adjoining. I'm still thinking it's 35,000 an acre. So that's where we're off. So I wasn't opposed to any of this construction or, improvements at all. I kind of messed up with the eminent domain thing with Bryan a few weeks ago. I was already agreeing to that. And
Yeah, you're not questioning the project, you're just
Nope.
questioning the value.
nope. So I was just trying to come back with, something that seemed a little more relevant. The amount of monetary return that I'm getting on this is what I would lose every year just on hay production. So it's 12 feet, I get that part, but 5 cuttings, it equals more than this amount. So my first counter was for that monetary amount and a piece of property that is encompassed by some of my land just to the south. And that was shot down right away. And that land was valued at $2,800. Since then, somebody changed it to 28,000, but that's irrelevant. So at that point, that's why we have a disagreement.
So Carl, where you're at right now, based on what you feel would be appropriate, you're saying that the value on the 2 properties that are zoned more residential, you're saying that they should be 75,000 an acre? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I would value them at.
Okay, and then the other, was it 12 acres?
No, it's 28 acres.
28, okay. Yeah, the 28 acres.
Yep.
You had originally bought that with the idea of some days making that a,
Yeah, lotting that out at approximately 35,000 an acre.
okay. For the record, I just want to find out where our differences are, so we know where
Right,
to go from
right.
there, okay, so the lots, was it 8 and 9?
8 and 9 are the south ones.
And those are the 75?
Right.
That Carl is saying, 75, and then the other one, it's at 35 an acre is what Kyle is, or what Carl is. Do you have any documentation of your own that could justify your values, Carl, on those? or-
Well, I brought some stuff. I thought it was more of a closed hearing, but all I did was I printed off the parcel that is there's 2 parcels over at the Rainbow, and I won't specify anybody's name.
No, we don't need other people's names. All right, so Rainbow, that's the one that's just, that's the one that
That's
that
a
we
mile
both
east.
know used to be Atherton, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So
If you want to just wait and then talk when you get back to your microphone, thank you. For the record, Mr. Goehring has handed me 2 parcels. And these would be in the Rainbow Ridge subdivision, which, like you said, is approximately a mile straight east, correct? Carl?
Yep. And it would be a short mile. It's probably 3/4 or less for those 2 properties.
right.
Anyway, they were selling over there for 35,000. So
And sometimes we have to be careful when we're considering different lots and what also creates their value.
Right,
For example, the property that you referred to that's just kitty corner from you.
right,
That's a substantial difference, but there also is already city services there.
right.
That
I
can have an
understand that.
impact on the value of a lot where the property that I'm just, in full disclosure
No.
to the board, we have to understand those
No,
differences.
I don't disagree. I know there's water and sewer already plumbed in. But I also know that they're gonna move up. I mean, they're gonna move across to my south property, I guess would be the next one to be acquired, but that's already been rezoned as city, that south
Right.
field.
And your property right now is would be the 2-mile jurisdiction of the city too for subdeveloping, right?
Correct.
Okay. Let's start, Commissioner Mojo.
Dave, my question is, the assessed value of the percentage of the property that we're talking about, what's that total?
Of parcels 8, 9, and 10, so the entire value or just? one?
Whatever the total that we're talking about.
Wanna look at 'em?
Not the whole parcel, but the
Okay.
percentages.
So parcel 8, the .01 acres times $20,000 per acre is $360?
No, I'm asking the assessed value that he's currently paying taxes
Yeah,
on.
I guess I don't have that, but
I've got that.
Okay.
And, those are good questions, and that's where I'm kind of curious whether we're going to be able to get to a result of value today, Bryan. Okay, I just want to make sure that we're
If we
not.
can't,
We're not required today, because we may need to, going to your question, it might be important for us to determine what portion. So in other words, I think the question, to rephrase Commissioner Mojo's question, is the amount of land that we're taking, what percentage of that is the total parcel versus, and then comparing that to the tax value on the entire parcel. Is that what you're getting at?
Right, so I look up the properties that we're talking about to the south of 70th Avenue, the subdivision that we were talking about, and those lots are currently being assessed, paying taxes on values $45,000 to $55,000. And I understand that that's not just 1 acre, but I want to know if he's paying taxes on a assessed value, I don't feel that we should offer less on what that assessed value is.
agree. I've not really dug into that. I talked to Nancy about it, and she didn't seem to say anything different, but it would be a good check to see, are we offering less than the county's actually assessing him at? Carl, are those lots more or less than an acre? How big are those?
1.74 is the south lot, and 1.8.
Can you refer to that, to lot numbers?
Yeah, 8 is 1.74, 9 is 1.81. And here's documentation if you want it.
Why don't you first hand that to Commissioner Mojo?
Thank you, Carl.
Question, and thank you.
Kevin, the question I had is on the Rainbow Ridge information that, just so that, is it, you had said it was $35,000, that's the sale price, right?
Yeah, well, that was the asking price. I don't know
Right.
what they actually
Okay.
paid.
Are those 1 acre lots? or-
What, they were 1 acre
Okay.
lots, and the
Gotcha.
paperwork that I gave Kevin, just, depicts what their value is now.
Gotcha.
You know,
I just wasn't sure if it was 35,000 for a lot or 35,000 per acre.
well, each
Either one of this-
lot was a 1 acre.
One and the same.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Mr. Chair, just to be clear, what you said, ultimately, we need a vote or a decision from the board of what to pay. It doesn't have to come today. You would just
I just,
close the hearing, reopen the hearing, make your findings, so we ultimately can make written findings.
I hope that's okay with you, 'cause I just
Yeah.
think we've got, in all fairness to our board and to everybody watching this, we prefer not going through this process, and we haven't done it very often. And so we want to do it right when we do have to
Right.
do it. And I'd rather us take the appropriate time to analyze all of this stuff that we're receiving for the first time in a public hearing. And we could certainly we could close today and come back, you said reopen again next week?
Right, to reopen, and also then if you need additional information, if you're wanting something from, say, Nancy on,
So would we close the hearing and would we just,
I think you could just stay,
we just recess the hearing?
right, recess the hearing and then,
I'm gonna probably suggest we do that today based on this stuff.
right.
Okay, but I still certainly want us, and that would still give us more time if we did have to add something to the record, right? Okay, all right. Yes, Commissioner Mojo.
Just to clarify then, if we recess the hearing, will it be advertised that new information would come next week?
I think we'd probably just re-put it back on the agenda next week and advertise that it'll come back on again. I don't know, it'll depend on whatever the board says at the end, if you want something additional or if you're just recessing to take time to look at information. I guess we'll just figure out what it's gonna be. But you could reset. It's more that we need to know what the board's intentions are so we can put that in written findings. Ultimately, there is an opportunity to appeal if a person wants to appeal, so that's why.
I think the critical piece here, in my mind, is that we've had 16 of the 19 parcels already gone through and through an appraisal process accepted. And for me to change that, I think we'd have to look at some uniqueness amongst those properties different than the 16 that we've already had too. I think that's kind of important in my mind, so, but, Dave?
You make a very, very good point, and I want Justin to kind of chime in a little bit, but there was another group that we had purchased and acquired property from that did the very same thing. They had a kind of an ag piece that was purchased for development, is that correct? And I believe they had this, they thought, well, we didn't buy it for expect to someday sell it for 5,000 an acre. They had the same intentions, but they hadn't quite gotten there yet, so they were a little disappointed that they, had they subdivided it, went through some of that, then it would have been looked at the 4 times that rate, 20,000 per acre, but I know they had the same, so I'm referring to parcel 10.
Right. It's, in parcel 10, if you look at the top of the picture, there's already development up there. I mean, see the houses?
Right, there's a subdivision north of you,
Right.
and then your current
So,
subdivision south.
so when we purchased that, I mean,
It
the
would make
idea,
sense that could fit in there.
Right.
In your mind, anyway.
exactly.
But I guess
We
my,
just weren't able to offer that 20,000 because
Okay.
it wasn't subdivided yet.
right, it's kind of similar to parcel 10, it's not quite gone through the process yet.
In the appraisal that was done, Dave or Justin, was there any consideration for, if I remember right in going through some of the things, there's a best use or something, or, I know we've had that in some of our other acquisition. I go back to, was it County Road 9 or 11 or something that we had?
Yeah, there was some
something?
talks about the highest and best used, and I think, I'm trying to think of where that mostly came into play. I don't know if it was, there's also timber and those types of lands, so I think typically the highest and best use.
That might even go back to the Lisa Borgen days when I remember that. Highest and best.
Would you like these?
I have copies of them.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
Yep.
Carl, we would like, if
can hold
if
on.
you're okay with that, we'd like to have, if he's got the exact same copies, we'd like to have that part of the record.
Sure.
That's okay with you? Sure. Okay. Is that, Brian, is that, okay.
I think that's a question that we will ask either from Tinjum and/or our county appraiser. What is the highest and best used, and make sure it was assessed correctly. We'll follow up on that.
Well, I guess my point there is if the highest and best use, if it's determined to coincide with Mr. Goehring's original process, that it could be developable land, that's something we should look at. And as opposed to some of the other lands that we have there, I don't know if the same case could be made for the intent, so. But anyway, I've said enough.
Sure.
Anything else, do we have anything else that we'd like to have submitted today? Mr. Goehring, Carl, are you okay with us recessing this
Sure,
hearing
sure.
and giving us time to review and, okay? And it's not gonna impact anything in terms of us schedule-wise, so I think we can take the appropriate time and go through this. So With that, do we need to have a motion to recess, or can I just? Okay. Yeah. Why don't we, I think next week we're gonna have a really, maybe we could look at 2 weeks, if that's okay. And do you have Colleen, do you have so like on the 21st, do you have a time that you could establish for that being on the agenda? Is it open right now? 9 o'clock. Okay, so could we have a motion to recess this hearing until 9 o'clock on September 21st?
I move we recess till 9 o'clock, September 21st.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Ebinger, second by Commissioner Kaylee. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. We'll get back to you. And or you can, we'll see you on the 21st.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
And by then, we'll probably be able to have a value and our, maybe our findings of fact could be all established at once. Thank you, Dave and Justin. All right, we'll move into our 905 item, and that is a presentation from the Downtown Moorhead Inc. We have President and CEO Derek Lapointe and the board chair Lisa Borgen here this morning. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's a nice room.
Yes, yes.
When I was here, it was a courtroom.
This-
2 courtrooms, actually.
Yes, this is part of our COVID remodeling for social distancing.
It's very nice,
Yeah.
very nice.
Derek, are you gonna, or Lisa, did you want to start off this morning?
Sure, I will start. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for entertaining us today. So we provided to you some documentation, a little bit about what Downtown Moorhead Inc. is. And basically, it started out as a group of downtown Moorhead businesses who are interested in advancing economic development in Moorhead. So it is a private-public partnership, so several of our local businesses contribute to the organization. It is a nonprofit organization. After we were meeting for a couple years, we hired Derek Lapointe. He's been our president and CEO for about 3 years now.
4 years, yeah.
Almost 4 years. And we've evolved into doing a lot more than economic development for just downtown Moorhead. We saw an opportunity as business leaders in the community that Moorhead per se could use some assistance with economic development, and we partnered with the city of Moorhead, and we have a contract with them to provide economic development services for all of Moorhead. So we started out as a downtown Moorhead focused. We became all of Moorhead focused, and I think in the last year since COVID, our organization led by Derek has done some consulting and some help to the county as well. And we see that as an opportunity for both the county and for our organization. Derek is very connected to the Minnesota side of business. As you all know, we are a part of a big community that is pretty dominated by the North Dakota side when it comes to the chamber and the EDC, and we're all members of it, and we think those are awesome organizations, and our organization partners with those organizations. So there is not a competition here between us and the EDC or us and the chamber. We're all on the same page. Where we think that we have a niche that needs to be filled is expertise on the Moorhead or the Minnesota side of economic development and the Minnesota side of legislation, laws, and programs that can help Minnesota businesses. And I think Derek has just invested a tremendous amount of time and energy learning about Minnesota legislation. He is well connected to the Minnesota Chamber. Throughout COVID, he was on weekly calls with the chamber, learning about what was going on with the PPP loans, et cetera. And I think he was a really good resource for Steve when it came to getting businesses in Clay County to sign up for PPP loans and relief. So that's kind of the backdrop of why we're here today. We think there's an opportunity for Clay County to have some economic development assistance with Derek. Do we want to take over all of economic development of Clay County? Absolutely not. But I think a resource, someone local who understands what's going on in the state, and someone who has good relationships and communication with others around the state can really help Clay County. So that's kind of my introduction to why we're here, and maybe I'll turn it over to Derek and he can give you some more information on what he and our organization has done over the last couple of years.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, and thanks for the time this morning. I think Lisa did a good job of summarizing kind of the purpose and why we're here. We've obviously done a lot of changing since I started 4 years ago. I don't think any of us thought we'd even have the success we've had so far. I mean, truthfully, we've made a pretty large presence within Moorhead itself. I think we've been a part of about almost $200 million of redevelopment and investment within Moorhead city limits already. I think the relationships, as Lisa mentioned, are probably more prominent in how we've kind of engaged the state as well as other local regional partners on taking, I think, Moorhead and our side of the river a little bit more seriously when it comes to development opportunities. We found that majority of the business side of the community, the developers, did not understand what policies and programs Minnesota had to offer. I think for a number of years it just became easy pickings for programs that existed through the city of Fargo, West Fargo, the state of North Dakota. As you know, development runs fast and quick. A lot of folks don't have time to relearn a new program or understand what the differences may be, but we've taken that time to establish those relationships and really show that there's an equitable fashion from a development standpoint between the two states. And that's just not related to border city stuff that we have specific to Moorhead and Dilworth, but throughout Clay County as well. I think our relationship with the Minnesota Department of Deed has been huge as well. I think one thing that's been very prominent and clear from the state is that they will not recognize partnerships that have North Dakota addresses. And that's been a challenge. We've tried to lift that and break through that through lots of conversations with the state as well as some of our local partners here of how do we have a bigger presence with the state if we can't access the capital of the programs that exist within the North Dakota side of the river. Ultimately, and just for the knowledge of the board here, any RFPs that come from deed, so when we're talking about projects that are looking to relocate on the western side of the state of Minnesota or others, those RFPs right now I think are only going to myself and Karen Lauer. So they're really not going to some of those larger entities that may serve us in that capacity. We've asked, and the state, again, is not willing to kind of share that information at this point in time. So I think, again, that trust that we've built with the state, that willingness to work together, and I think that ultimately brings more projects potentially to Clay County when they know that we have a partner that's serving a larger regional territory as well. So we're excited. We think because of the expansion of our organization and just the growth of our organization over the last number of years, we feel that we're positioned well to really see some tremendous growth and opportunity within Clay County. I think there's a lot of assets that aren't realized and maybe aren't showcased throughout even our greater region, and we're hoping to be able to serve a little bit of a void there. And as Lisa mentioned, we're not here to take over anything. We just think we can lift up a partnership that makes it beneficial for all parties here on the Minnesota side of the river. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. I find this interesting, and I love economic development. I think it's good for everybody. I want to, so you're You have a financial request from the county. That's obviously why you're here as well, to help with that. And how do you see, if Clay County were to invest in your work, how could that benefit the Barnesville, the Karen Lowers of the worlds? And I think back to the good work that Stan Thurlow did, who was amazing in economic development. So how do you see, so that from a county perspective, this doesn't just become a city of Moorhead issue? I mean, obviously, that's our hub, that's where the majority of our population and the majority of our business is, but it still would be, to me, and I think to the rest of this board, it would still be of high interest as to what we would invest in you, how that could benefit. We talked about the importance of it, but how could Karen Lauer, for example, benefit from your work in Barnesville?
Yep. Yeah, no, I think it's a fair question, and Karen and I communicate on a frequent basis as well. I think for us, it's policy development, it's more advocacy for development countywide. For specific example, we just worked with Peyton in Dilworth to create a new tax incentive policy. They now have a commercial industrial property tax exemption policy that's been on the books now for about 3 months. I worked with their offices for probably a good 5 months to kind of develop that policy, get them the resources that they needed to develop it, understand how it works, and ultimately kind of help advocate and promote those programs that they're putting into place as well. So I think it's already happening. I think it's more probably a little bit more diligence on us to get further outside of the county besides just Dilworth and Barnesville. We've had conversations with Holly, we've had conversations with others throughout the county. But I think a resource, again, through partnerships, again, through the contacts and the communication that we have with the state on a frequent basis. I mean, there's RFPs coming out that maybe don't serve Moorhead on a frequent basis, but could serve others within the community. But I don't think they're even getting a chance to submit for those. So our opportunity is to connect the dots more than anything, making sure that our other communities within the area have an opportunity to submit and ultimately showcase the ability to facilitate some projects that ultimately create tax value, job creation, that benefit the entire county as well.
I think I would add that I think the smaller communities recognize Derek's expertise because he is connected with Minnesota, understands the programs that are out there. So frankly, a lot of their first call, if they want to do something, is to Derek and ask him for his assistance. I would invite Derek to just talk a little bit about the PPP loans and what your role was in that for the county. And frankly, I mean, I'm the chair of our board, and our board is the businesses. And their interest is, we want to help Clay County and we want to help do these things, but it's kind of outside of the scope of what they've invested in for the DMI to do. So that's another reason why we're here. But I would invite you to explain to them what you did.
Well, I think when the CARES money started coming in, I think it was large conversation for all of us, right? Moorhead, I think, was 3.2 million. I think the county was a little over 6 million. We had a lot of conversations about what should occur with that money. Certainly there was internal conversations that the county had and ultimately did. We created that small business relief grant program that I know the county ended up replicating, and we ended up getting out to a lot of folks. We ended up supporting, in Moorhead alone, we had 200 applicants and over $2 million of grants that went out. I think we had over $1 million or close to $1 million that the county ended up getting out throughout the entire county for businesses. So, for us, I think it's the pulse of the business community. I mean, we're not limited to just our city limits. We've never been that way. We're here to support, we're here to uplift the entire community and how we can ultimately expand and grow. We don't want to lose businesses to the North Dakota side of the river, to other areas across the state of Minnesota. So I think for a lot of it, it's going out, having those hard conversations, understanding what their needs are, and coming up with programs and policies. Certainly the COVID example is prime, and we're running into a whole another set of challenges with workforce and other issues that our businesses are facing right now. And we all know that the American Rescue Plan dollars are out there. And there's a lot of conversations of what we should potentially do with some of those dollars as well. So we feel that in that fashion, we prevented a lot of businesses from leaving. I'll probably remember the horror stories of North Dakota landlords that were offering to break the leases in Moorhead or other places around Clay County to just come over to the North Dakota side of the river. Ultimately, nobody decided to do that, but I think that was through the diligent work from a communication standpoint, but ultimately a feasible program that was created to help these businesses as well.
I think, if Commissioner Mojo and we obviously were part of that CARES group that Derek did do an awful lot to help us in the business relief plan that we had moving forward. And this gives us another opportunity to thank you for that too, for your help and guidance on, our goal was to make sure that all businesses in Clay County were treated reasonably and fairly in the process with those dollars, and you were able to help us determine that. I do have one more question, and my other question would be, so the funding request that you have for us, how would you use that in terms of difference versus the way you operate today? I know your time is limited. Are you seeing, based on other businesses, and maybe Lisa, this could go to you as a board member, is it more difficult now we know that businesses have struggled?
Right. I would say it's not more difficult now. I think there's a lot more opportunity.
Okay.
I think if Clay County was an investor in the organization, then we could give some priority to some of Derek's time in consulting with those in Barnesville and Hawley and Dilworth, et cetera. Frankly, he does it now out of the goodness of his heart, and he's not getting we are not getting compensated. It's not Derek, because he works for us.
Right.
But I think as a board, we have a fiduciary duty to make sure that the person that's working for us is doing the work for us. And frankly, I think we have an opportunity to expand, but we'll need more investments in our organization. Right now, Derek is on his own. He gets a little bit of help sometimes from someone for some administrative work, but he's on his own. So we're looking to perhaps expand, but again, we would have to have investments to do so. So that's the reality of it.
That's exactly where I was going with my question, that I figured that at some point, this guy here is gonna run out of hours.
Exactly.
To do all this on his own. I'm gonna go with Commissioner Mojo first, and
Just a comment, I know Commissioner Campbell touched on it a little bit, but the willingness for you and the city of Moorhead to really help out with the CARES dollars made sure that all businesses within Clay County received the same allotment that it applied for the CARES help. And the amount that rural Clay County would have been significantly less if Moorhead hadn't and DMI wouldn't have come to the table, so thank you for that. I might steal Commissioner Gross's question. So often people come to us and say, I see you part of West Central Initiative. How is that benefiting Clay County? And I know that you're not trying to reinvent the wheel. I think if I'm reading in between the lines, your request is really to help bolster the partnerships that we have on the Minnesota side. Can you talk a little bit about how this request could go to strengthen that advocacy?
Yeah, I think, truthfully for us, I know there's a lot of ask out in the community right now. There's Fueling Our Future. There's lots of ask out there. I think for us, we've even seen it as a guiding consultant or just another set of eyes when we're looking at holistically what's best to move Clay County forward. And I'll even say that in the mindset that we've had leading up to this point, this ask right now. We want to make sure that our public entities are making wise decisions with dollars. Making sure that we're not investing in programs and policies that don't benefit us as a community. Truthfully, I think there's so many opportunities that are unrealized at the state of Minnesota right now for Clay County, for Moorhead in particular too. I think we haven't put ourselves out there enough to really capitalize on our large regional growth. I think a lot of times those RFPs just end up going to the North Dakota side of the river thinking they can facilitate them. But we have just this much access to that capital and the human potential over there as well. And for us, I think we certainly have partnerships with the EDC, the Chamber, West Central. We're different though. We're not a loan processing organization like West Central. Even West Central's campaign of kind of that live wide open, it's different here. We're not as rural as what you would find potentially outside of Clay County within the West Central territory too. So I think we are able to position ourselves to say we're more here. We can do a lot more from the business facilitation because we're part of a metro of 250,000 people. I think our access to projects and job creators, the public institutions that exist here, the great institutions like American Crystal Sugar, RDO, you name it, there's people looking for expansions right now. And there's ways to facilitate them within our community rather than having them go somewhere else thinking they can do better from a tax perspective or from a human capital perspective, from workforce. There's a whole set of assets that we need to showcase, and I think that's where we can come into play is continuing to share that larger story of we demand more and we want more, and we're going to be ready to capitalize on it as well.
If I might add something as well, I think we're different in that we are a public-private organization and a nonprofit, and we believe in accountability. I mean, all of the businesses that have invested in this organization expect to hear, what am I getting for my money? And that's something that we would offer you as well, because Derek does a quarterly report, actually probably more often even, but at least quarterly, of what is going on in the area in which he is servicing. How many housing starts are we having? How many meetings is he having with developers? What types of things is he doing when he's looking at programs that we could be implementing and we haven't had the time or a person interested in putting in the time to figure that out. So the accountability piece, I can tell you that you would get accountability for any investment that you made, because that's part of what we do as an organization. Everyone wants to know, we've invested, what are we getting for our money? And so far, I think everyone who has invested in DMI is more than happy with what's been going on, and everyone continues to invest in it because they can see that it's really benefiting our community.
All right, I'm Commissioner Ebinger.
And just a couple observations. I'm on the EDC board, and I come from a community, I come from a retail family. I come from a community that fostered Dillard's department stores, a state that fostered Tyson and Walmart and a lot of businesses. And I've always been a proponent to be part of a region that moves forward, and we are. And representation with our partners across the way is essential. These are two very different states, and we're afforded a great many opportunities as being part of Minnesota that, to my frustration, since I came here and worked for the city for years, I didn't think that we took a position to where we could get the growth that we being part of this region dictates. This does not detract from the chamber, doesn't detract from the EDC and the organizations that have really helped guide us forward as a region. But we've got to have a Minnesota voice. And I haven't been with the city for several years, but I hear good things. And somebody has already partnered with us on some pretty important issues, I think is worth an investment going forward.
I want to piggyback on your comments to remind everybody, and I've proudly talked about this for quite some time, that we've been the fourth largest growing county in the state of Minnesota for quite some time, and that's done by things like what we're talking about today. And I don't want us to be fourth anymore. I want us to be first.
Yeah.
You know. So, Commissioner Gross.
Oh. Jenny, you were right. You did.
Here comes the question.
I knew it.
Yeah, we do have this greater Fargo Moorhead. We got a Fargo Moorhead Chamber. We got West Central, all those. I mean, and you're the first one, I'm not the first one, but I really enjoy what you're saying here. I mean, we should really look at what you're doing here. I mean, you're really causing a lot of development in Moorhead, and that is really helping us out a lot. I mean, I didn't hear that much that the others are doing all that yet, you know. I mean, yes, they're here and working, but we don't hear from them that much, you know. And it's great to hear from you on what you're doing, you know. I'd be interested in knowing, I don't have the budget in front of me now, what we give to all these others, you know. Right now, I'm looking at, this is a heck of a, you know, they're asking for $25,000 for 3 years. I mean, that, to me, looks to me like we could work that into that budget, you know, somehow or other. I mean, do we give the others less and give them the 25,000? Or can we add the 25,000 too? But I'm very impressed with your presentation, and I've finally, from one of these agencies, you know, hey, we're seeing some progress, what's going on here. And yeah, it's mostly Moorhead, that's what you work at, but I mean, you do look at other things. But I mean, that's what we need. I mean, Moorhead is our growth area, so I mean, I know I know Dilworth's growing, and I know Hawley's growing, Barnesville's growing. They're all growing, you know, and stuff like that. But boy, if Moorhead's going to grow, you know, the rest are going to keep on going. You know, it's just, I mean, it's great work what you're doing, Derek and Lisa. Thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate that, and I think, you know, the bottom line is we want to raise the tax value, and that ultimately helps Clay County as well, right? So we think there's tremendous opportunity within the industrial park, and that's industrial park for all areas of Clay County, right? But we've got some pretty big proposals. We're in the front running for a lot of big projects. I think one thing that's maybe a little bit of a teaser, but we got action and close to some closures at the Moorhead Center Mall, which could be tremendous. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars of reinvestment within our
Don't
core.
be messing with our DMB.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, you know, we kind of helped make the little phone calls on that one too. But no, we think there's great value, even just outside of just that individual core project of the mall. We know Kevin Bartram just acquired the Fairmont Creamery building. He's putting a significant investment in that. He acquired the United Sugar building, which is on the east end of the mall. That's going to be a $30+ million project that'll start next spring. And we got the Epic property that's right along the river on Center Avenue as well. That'll be a $30 million project as well. So we got $75+ million just happening within our core projects and downtown area just next year. So we got value that's coming.
Well, some will say that, well, property taxes always have to go up, and through inflationary, that's probably right. But one of the ways that you can help reduce that is through good economic development, and that's what we're talking about here. And everybody will benefit from good economic development. And Commissioner Gross, I like your comments that you just made. I'm thankful that the private folks in Moorhead, the businesses established in this group, this Downtown Moorhead Inc. I think that's a good start, and I think our other communities can take that to heart too, of what they may be able to do in their communities to work together. So, thank you.
And I would just add real quickly too, and I think that really lays the foundation of our organization. Like, we are business front first, right? Even though we do have a contract with the city that came after the fact, and we are looking for Clay County's, you know, public investment in the organization as well. We are very much a business first organization, making sure we understand their needs before any policy, any program, anything is done, quite frankly, because that's ultimately who we want to benefit and serve is those that are existing that have already ultimately made that investment in the community. But anybody that potentially wants to come in from a new business perspective as well. So that's one thing we want to make sure that's clear as well.
Well, thank you. From a timing standpoint, we're kind of in the down the stretch in our levy discussions, and we have to set our preliminary levy by October 1st. So this month we'll have to be making these decisions, and we'll let you know. And Lisa, I want to say it's nice to see you and talking about something other than rehabilitating something else. So now we're talking about the important things too for our community. So thank you both for being here.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, we'll move right into We're running behind a little bit here. Kathy and Jamie, COVID-19 update. While we're doing it, Steve, so in this plan, you might want to see how that would, the request today fits into, and I think we're going to have a couple others today, but, okay. Okay, good morning, Kathy and Jamie.
Good morning, and Becky's with us again.
Becky.
Also, I'm just going to pull up the. It's okay. Why? Oh, slideshow? Slideshow. Where is my, there, slideshow. God, it was so small, I could hardly. Okay. Thank you, my IT people. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. We hope to impress you with our presentation, especially Commissioner Gross. Just kidding. Sorry. I couldn't help myself. I'm sorry about that. Okay, we are going to provide you with our updated data. And as you can see, we have the Clay County numbers of active cases. And just keep in mind the active cases fluctuate, as Becky reminds us all the time. So it's at this moment in time, they can go up and down, obviously, as the cases come in. So back in August 23rd, we had 168 active cases, and now September 6th, we have 165. So it's nice to see that we don't have a big jump in those cases at this point. Active cases in Minnesota, 11,111, and then now as of September 3rd, 13,829. And the reason why September 3rd for Minnesota, they didn't, there isn't any new data over the weekend. Active cases in Cass County, 347 on August 23rd, and they jumped up to 518 now on September 6th. So they've seen a little bit of an increase over in Cass County. And then in North Dakota, it's 1508 August 23rd, and then September 6th, and the reason why the dates are different is I explained Minnesota didn't have the weekend data, but that's 2,714, so they've jumped up a bit. Our active cases by age group, and you can see that as well, that this also changes. Still the 35 to 39, really close behind it, the 30 to 34-year-olds, and the 15 to 19-year-olds, and then the 0 to 4. So we've got 15 of those as well. So we're kind of seeing some changes in that age group, the younger age group for sure. And then we've seen a little bit in the 60 to 64-year-old.
Kathy, on the younger age groups, what are we seeing in terms of hospitalization for those? Do you have any data on that?
Yes, and Becky will cover that in just a
Okay, you're
minute.
going to cover, okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
thank you for the
Don't wanna get it,
question.
okay.
And then we show the cases per week. So it just, again, gives you the snapshot of back in March of 2020, the start of the graph, and certainly the significant ramp up in October, November, and then another bump up in March and April. And then we have the numbers through August 29th, cases per week. So that's an ability to just, at a glance, see that snapshot. And then I will move it over to Becky to talk about the next information.
Good morning. So I did include this graph this time. I had stopped putting this graph together every week just because we had very minimal hospitalizations, as you can see, like spring and throughout the summer. But a couple weeks ago, we did have a pretty big jump in the number of Clay County cases that required hospitalization. So you can see we had 10 of our residents that were admitted to the hospital for COVID the week of the 15th. And actually, that's the highest it's been since last November. So obviously a little concerning there. The next week, we saw a little bit of a dip with 5 cases admitted to the hospital. But last week, we had, again, an elevated number that was admitted to the hospital, so it was at 9 when I pulled this report. I would expect that number to actually be higher than that once the data has a chance to get caught up. Also of note, the ages of the admitted cases, as you can see, the average age range is 50 years old for Clay County residents. So it's not the elderly or the people over age 65 that we're seeing in the hospital now like we were at the beginning of the pandemic. Minimum age of 4 years old to 90 years old is kind of our age range for admitted cases. And we've had 5 admitted to the ICU since August 1st. And this chart just sums up, this is throughout the whole state of North Dakota, so this is not just Fargo, because that information is hard for us to get, but it does include, these numbers that you see in here are Clay County cases as well. All of our currently hospitalized cases are in North Dakota, so they're reflected in these numbers. So this report I pulled yesterday, there was a total of 102 patients hospitalized just for COVID. 11 of those were in the ICU. In comparison to a couple weeks ago, there was a total of 44 hospitalized for COVID with 6 in the ICU. So those numbers are continuing to increase week by week. And then you can see that they break it down by age groups as well. You can see there's one patient currently hospitalized in pediatrics, so at the 0 to 5, and then also, our middle-aged group. We are seeing increasing number of hospitalizations. And then this graphic was actually put together by the Sanford healthcare system, and I think it's a good visual for showing what they're seeing in the hospital in terms of people that are vaccinated versus unvaccinated. So red symbolizes the unvaccinated individuals, and then white are the vaccinated individuals. So you can see there's 19, this was done, I believe, August 31st was when this chart was put together. So out of the 19 patients on ventilators, only 1 was vaccinated. So largely unvaccinated are the people that we're seeing in the hospitals.
Did you have a question?
Yes.
Commissioner Moser.
Just a comment, I know that, one, I really appreciate seeing this because it helps us to understand what's happening out there, but I think it's also important to point out the piece at the very bottom that this is of Sanford's 22 hospitals. And so it's not a snippet of the new Sanford Hospital south of 94, it's all of Sanford's 22.
Yes.
Thank you.
And actually, that does help us to visualize it better since they do have so much more data that really drives that point home even more, that of all of the hospitalizations that we're seeing throughout the Sanford system, almost all of them are among the unvaccinated.
Is that all North Dakota, or is that all Sanford?
All Sanford. So I
That's
think they
including
have
South Dakota?
20, yeah, 3 states, I think? Yeah.
Okay, and then I'll talk a little bit about the vaccines that are being provided. So this last week of August 29th, we had just 71 doses that were administered. Things slowed down a little bit, mostly because we had done quite a few in our universities. And so looking at last week, we had a first dose clinic at M State, so that was our first time at M State on Wednesday, and then continued to offer to our K-12 schools and the Family Service Center. So the 71 doses is all of those sites combined for last week. And then for this week, we'll be doing some doses at the Moorhead High School. The majority of those Wednesday from 9 to 11 are second doses, but an opportunity for first doses as well. Another clinic at the Family Service Center on Wednesday from 1 to 4:30. And then MSUM, majority second doses, but some first doses also on Thursday from 10 to 1. That's what we have planned for this week. And then just looking at the next slide there. the statewide data, looking at our statewide data, 2 weeks ago when we were here, the number of people with at least one dose of vaccine across the state of Minnesota was at 39.6%, and we're at 70.8% this week. And then people with a completed vaccine series 2 weeks ago was 65.2%, and we're at 66.5%. So continuing to crawl up a little bit in our vaccine doses. And then again, you can see that down at the bottom, the number of people that have had vaccine by age group, and the majority of ours are still in that 65 plus, but seeing a rise in the 50 to 64 population, which hopefully is going along with the increase in those that are positive and hospitalized as well. And then we continue to climb in the 12 to 15, so getting a better response to those 12 to 15-year-olds as well. That's that. And then back to Becky.
All right, so this is just the current breakthrough cases data that we have from the state of Minnesota. And just a reminder that a breakthrough case is somebody that's at least 14 days past their final dose of a vaccine that winds up becoming infected with COVID. So the number of breakthrough cases has increased a little bit in the previous weeks. So we're at 0.415% of people that have been fully vaccinated that wind up getting COVID. Breakthrough hospitalizations are still very low at 0.027%, and breakthrough deaths have not moved, so 0.002%. So again, very, very negligible numbers. And then this is just our level of community transmission. We have not changed since last time we met. We're still in that red or that high level of community transmission. As you can see, the majority of the state of Minnesota is now at that high level as well. And then I included this time at the bottom just the metrics that the CDC uses to rate each county as low, moderate, significant, or high.
Kathy?
Yes, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, we also want to just mention, there's lots of questions about booster doses.
Yes.
And right now, I'm sorry, thank you. Talking about booster doses, and that, when we talk about booster doses, it would be the third dose, if you had a 2-dose vaccine, Pfizer and Moderna, or another additional dose for the J&J. However, FDA and CDC are not authorizing that yet. We often hear, and it's coming from the federal government, that excuse me, there's a specific date, but there is not. They're still working on the booster doses. So for those people that are calling about that it has not been authorized yet. They're still working on that. The one that is authorized is the dose for those that are severely immunocompromised. And those would be people with that are undergoing chemotherapy, for instance, or stem cell, HIV. There's some very specific criteria for those people that would receive that additional dose. It isn't, for example, someone notified me they have diabetes and asthma. That additional dose is not for those. It's for the severely immunocompromised. At this point in time, Minnesota Department of Health really wants us to work on and focus on the unvaccinated. This is a vaccine-preventable disease, so they really want us to focus on those unvaccinated before we get into a dose for the severely immunocompromised. So we're recommending that if people are have that immunocompromised state and are considering whether they should get it or not, we recommend that you talk with your medical provider so they can give you the best information about whether you qualify for that and where you can receive that. But public health, we still have so many that are unvaccinated. We need to really focus on the unvaccinated is our mission at this point.
Commissioner Ebinger.
Just a question, one of the surprise questions you may not be prepared for, but reading the paper this morning and listening to the news yesterday, they spoke of the Mu variant that's out now. There are concerns that it may be even more contagious than the Delta, and we know what the Delta did to us. Do you have any additional information on that? They said it's been found in 49 states. And also, just for the public's benefit, could you explain how these variants occur in relation to immunizations?
Becky, I think that's directed at you.
So I have not, I have heard the same news stories that you have. I haven't been able to keep up with the actual scientific facts behind that yet. I think that's, still more to be determined in terms of that new variant. But to answer your question about variants, so every time a virus replicates within someone's body, it essentially will make a mistake, and so the genetic part of the virus will swap with other parts, and it becomes different. And so the more that the virus circulates throughout our population, the more chance, I guess you could put it, that genetic swapping will happen. A lot of times when variants come about, it's not a benefit to the virus, but sometimes it is. And so, what we're seeing now with SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID, is that it's kind of found a way to jump into the population where it hadn't been an issue before. So it's becoming more infectious, and it's also infecting younger people, which we hadn't seen before. That answers your question.
I'll give you a setup here. Would immunization interrupt the ability for these variants to occur?
Yes. The more people that become infected, the more probability of variants happening. Absolutely.
One more reason to get a shot.
So this infection likes to find a host that it can live within and then expand.
Right.
And if it can't live through going to Commissioner Ebring's the vaccine,
Right.
The likelihood of it being able to expand or mutate
Right.
is reduced, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
That-
A virus is not alive until they need us as a host. It's not like a bacteria that can live on surfaces. The virus infects a person and takes over the cell machinery, and so it's completely dependent on us. The more people that get vaccinated, the less chance it has to mutate.
Excellent information. Anything else today, Kathy, Jamie,
I
Becky?
think that's it, unless there's other
Oh.
questions.
Thank you for your report. I think we'll still, I know you're all busy, but I think we'll still ask that you come back on a weekly basis until we see this calm down again, so,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, and Kathy, we have a couple more agenda items with you, so we'll move right into the request to hire a .6 FTE family home visiting nurse and a full-time case management nurse. And that's for the board, it's attachment E.
Okay, yes, Jamie will provide the information on the nurses. Thank you.
So in January of 2020, the board approved 2.6 FTE nurse positions. And due to COVID and people, basically, we weren't able to see our clients, and so it was a difficult time to train people, but we also used them for COVID. And that has gone on for quite a while, so we didn't fill those two positions. So we actually went back to the pick last week, was it?
3 weeks.
Yeah.
Was it that long ago? to request to fill those positions again. But looking at the family health position, we are still requesting that .6 FTE position. But for the adult case management position, because of our caseload continuing to grow, and because our workforce seems to be in nursing a lot more fluid, so we're coming and going more than we used to see, and it's a really good solid 2 years to orient staff, we're asking that go from the .6 to a full FTE. It is in our budget for 2021, so we have the savings of not filling that position to date now, and we also have put it in our budget for 2022. So our request is to fill the .6 FTE family health nurse position, and the previously approved .6 adult health position, we're requesting a full FTE for that position.
So we did talk about this in PIC, and we did feel that because this had already been a previously approved budget item on the .6, that the recommendation would be that that should be done, and then the going from .6 to 1.0 for 2022, we felt that wouldn't necessarily qualify under a new request, but it would just be an expansion, and it's for 2022. That would be covered by savings from the 2021 budget where you did not hire, right? Is that a fairly good recap? Steve, you were there? All right.
Yes, Mr. Chair, but you're looking to hire that full-time .6 right now, right?
Correct. To fill both of those positions now. And then the case management position, the good thing about that is that if we've got the staff, we can generate the revenue. So the positions do support themselves with the health plan contracts. And
But the .6, even they're asking for it now, we actually approved it in the 2021 budget at the beginning, for the beginning of the year. So it's nothing new for the 2021.
Right.
And then we're also, if that's approved, requesting to backfill. If somebody internally would like a .6 position, then we would just backfill on that.
Thanks, Kathy.
Well, just for the rest of the board, the PIC committee did agree 100% to these requests, just for your information there.
I would move to approve these requests with backfill.
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Kaylee, second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried, and for the record, Commissioner Gross had to leave us this morning, so there was no vote on his part, but it still carries. All right, so let's move into the request to fill vacated 1 FTE for public health nurse position in adult health program area.
And that is an adult health position that we did have on staff after we received a resignation. And we're asking to fill that position. And that too is a position that's supported by the contracts from the health plans as well.
Again, this was reviewed by PIC and certainly recommended for approval.
Make a motion to approve the request with
Second.
backfill.
We have a motion
It's
by
backfill.
Commissioner Mojos.
Thank you.
Second by Commissioner Ebinger to approve with backfill if necessary. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy and Jamie. We'll see you next week. All right, we'll move in. Oh, Kathy, you gotta hang around.
I gotta
one more
just
time.
stay
Yeah. All right. Now we
right.
have a request for staffing changes in Detox. And Kathy, you gonna just let Troy handle this, or do you wanna
Yeah,
open?
I think we'll tag team it.
All right, well, you
I
can
think the
start us
information
off.
sheet is pretty, we've got the budget piece of that, but I think the information sheet gives a pretty good description of that. So again, in 2020, we had approval for a .6 LPN, which we couldn't fill, and then we also have an open .6 LPN position. So, and this is based on, again, and Troy can talk about this, the acuity of our clients continues to increase, and the complexity of behaviors when they're under a chemical or substance, and the mental health issues is continuing to be ongoing. It's always been a safety issue, continues to be a safety concern. So we really need the staffing we have some incidences sometimes where we feel like we don't have enough staff to manage some of those really complex clients. Anything more on that number one, Troy, for the 2020 of the LPN? And we have that also, and we can go through the whole thing unless you want to stop with each one, but we have the budgeted amount of 0.6 LPN. And actually, the 0.6 LPN, both of those, our request is to move to 1 FTE just to cover, it's difficult to find LPNs and RNs. It's always a challenge. So hoping that if we have full-time staff, that will help in our recruitment, as well as we have the need. We're using a lot of variable hour. We also have, the next one is for detox technicians. So we have a 0.6 and a 0.8 currently, and we'd like to move those to 1 FTE as well. We'd reduce some of our variable hour time. As you can see, we have budgeted variable hour technician time, so we could reduce those hours that we utilize them for. And as Troy reminded me this morning, we also have a lot of people getting overtime hours. If we don't have the staff, especially variable hour, it's sometimes they're not available as much as we need them. So we have regular staff getting overtime hours. So this would help in that as well. And we also have additional savings, and you'll see when you look at the budgeted sheet, the additional savings for these positions that we have budgeted in 2021 and did not fill. So we have the amounts that have been budgeted, and then to fill these on October 1st, you see the amounts that it would cost for the remainder of this year. And so we have the significant savings from the budgeted hours that we can utilize to pay for the rest of the year, and they're also in our 2022 budget. And then we have the PhDoc specialist, and that's a person that's been supporting moving to fully electronic health records for our detox, which is going to take, and has been, a significant amount of time to install that, to train all the staff, all the variable shifts. It's a challenge. And that person has also been doing other administrative work for detox, so we're requesting that 0.6 person to be moving to 1 FTE in 2021. That would, we could manage that in our budget with the savings and start that person on October 1st. And we also have included that in our 2022 budget as well. And these positions were brought forth to the PIC. So hopefully, I know it can be kind of confusing, so I'm sure you have questions on those.
Okay, before Troy, Commissioner Mojo has.
Commissioner Gross was unable to attend that PIC committee meeting, so I was able to take part in this discussion, and it does seem like a lot of different parts moving around, but I think the most important part is you've identified ways to better utilize the staff and make sure that we're avoiding some major thin areas, particularly in coverage and on weekends. And I think the bottom line is that this change will save the county a substantial amount of money to the tune of $24,000. So I certainly appreciate your willingness to look hard at that and find areas to make it more efficient and save us some dollars. So certainly have my support in this area.
Thank you, Commissioner Mojo, for bringing that up. And that day, we had multiple meetings, and Commissioner Mojo Frank couldn't be here, and Commissioner Mojo happened to be here, and I asked her as the vice chair to sit in Frank's place to help review this, and I concur with her, and I think certainly the PIC's recommendation on this would be to approve all of these, and I don't know, Steve, if we need to do them one at a time, or if the board would be, I would be okay with this if we taken them collectively, unless somebody would like to see an individual vote on each one, but.
Mr. Chair, if I may, yes. I think because it's a overall staffing change for 2021, I would make a motion to approve the agenda items for the staffing changes.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Mojo, second by Commissioner Kaylee. Any further discussion? Troy, you've got a motion and a second here. Do you want to try to change that for us, or are you good with it?
I think I'm good with that.
Okay.
I appreciate your guys' support. Honestly, when I left Juvenile Center and came over here, I really didn't know what I was getting into.
Well, you've been doing a terrific job.
I appreciate that much, because it has been a very challenging job to build this program. So,
well, hang in there. Any other comments? Comments regarding the motion?
Just maybe a follow-up. It is definitely a challenge, and I understand that, but I think the other part to say is that it's
Yes.
a needed asset to folks that really need it. And so while it may be crazy and difficult, it's needed.
Yeah, my staff do a wonderful job, and we've really built some stability, and these, you're right, these clients really need help, and it's the first step in getting them, you know, the help they need, and yeah, it's some scary stuff some days, but it's great to have your support.
All right. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried, you're good to go.
Thank you very much.
Our next item is a presentation and request for funding for Metro-wide housing needs analysis. And we have Cindy Gray with us from the Executive Director of MetroCog. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to some information about this request. Earlier this summer, I was contacted by the Fargo Planning Department and was asked to participate in a discussion about a Metro-wide housing analysis. As a result of that, we sent out a survey that some of you probably saw and took that was intended to determine the level of interest in the need, or interest in and need to conduct a Metro-wide housing study. And the results of that survey indicated that there was a high level of interest and need, and as a result of that, the consensus in just working with the Fargo Planning Department and one of the Fargo commissioners was to move forward with a strategy to fund a study and begin to communicate with all of you about that. So, and then as a follow-up to that, develop a scope of work and request for proposals. The objective of a Metro-wide housing study would be to first provide a thorough foundation of data regarding housing demand and housing supply, gaps in the inventory, needs of different elements of the population. And that's one of the things that, working with the planners in our metro area and even with the Home Builders Association, they said they have a severe lack of data, and they really find that debilitates them from being able to take action to encourage or even incentivize different types of housing. They really, really feel a strong need for a base foundation of data. And so once that data has been established, a study such as this would then begin to look at differences between our communities, between Minnesota and North Dakota, for example, between communities like Moorhead and Dilworth, and look at who is best poised to meet certain needs in the short term, and in the longer term, what policies and practices might need to change in order for communities to achieve their goals and to provide a little bit easier housing situation for our population to deal with. And one aspect of the study that we've also discussed is the role of communities that are not within our urbanized area, but they're within our metropolitan planning area, such as Barnesville and Glendon and Sabin, and to what extent people who work in the metro area are choosing to live outside of the urban area in those communities, and what's driving that. And that's not necessarily a bad or good thing, it's just a fact. Some people prefer to live in a smaller community, but that's part of our big picture in terms of housing, and we want to have a better understanding of that on both sides of the river. Finally, some study scope questions are still being decided on, but we also believe that the study should provide strategies and plans for moving forward and give us information about case studies in other communities around the country where jurisdictions or private-public partnerships, private organizations have successfully met certain housing needs or certain niche markets, and give us examples of how they did that. And so the funding strategy that was laid out in your packet materials reflects roughly a proportional breakdown of cost by population, within our metropolitan planning area, kind of similar to how MetroCog breaks down its local match amounts, but it's a little bit more rounded numbers, and we're also going outside of the public sector to ask for some funding from entities that are, interested in economic development and in overall success of our metro area. So that's where I arrived at the $5,500 amount of ask to Clay County, which would be the same as what we would be asking for from Cass County. So I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. Cindy, I know we're in the process with MetroCog of determining the allocation funding based on the 2020 census. And I think just by trends that I've observed, it looks like Clay County might have a small reduction. Can you speak to what percentage or what amount that may be?
Right. In the past, Clay County has, and this is the portion of Clay County that's outside of the urbanized area, so not counting Moorhead and Dilworth, Clay County has made up about a little over 7% of our metropolitan population. And obviously that doesn't include the entire county, just those townships that are within our metropolitan planning area. Based on the 2019 estimates, that went down to just over 5%. And now with the 2020 census data available, Fargo makes up about 52.4% of our overall population. That's up about 0.3% from the 2019 estimates that we looked at most recently. So since our bylaws limit any one jurisdiction to 50%, we have to take that 2.4% and divide it up amongst all of you proportionally. So Clay County's percentage will still be in roughly that 5.4 or 5.5%. And I haven't crunched out those numbers exactly. I want to make sure they're right, but they did not change significantly from the 2019 estimates that our policy board decided to use to calculate the 2022 budget numbers.
So I guess maybe where my question was going is, do you foresee a reduction in your normal funding request? And if so, could that help offset what this new request could be?
For 2022, yes, your Clay County's portion of the local match did decrease by, and I don't have those specific numbers in front of me, but they decreased by a few $1,000s based on that change from over 7% to 5-point-something%. So yes, that does help offset with this request. And this is not, part of the reason we're making a separate request for this is, first of all, we hadn't had the discussion about this when we developed our budget for 2022.
No.
And second of all, it's not a study that's eligible for our federal transportation funding. So most of our funding comes from our consolidated planning grant through Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration. And since this is not transportation oriented, we have to seek separate funding for this and for the staff time that we spend on it.
I think going to Commissioner Mojo's observation about the reduction in our obligation to the normal formula being reduced could help offset this 5,500 new request, because this would be a new request to our board for funding, and which would technically, from our standpoint on a net basis, it would be something less than $5,500. Then it becomes, the conversation that we still have to have is why the need for this? And I think it's kind of obvious that we know, when we're going to hear about workforce shortages and things like that coming up, and we're not going to be able to resolve those with our current resident population. So we're going to have to depend on people moving here. I firmly believe that, and I think the evidence shows that. And in order for us to recruit people, we do have to have some idea of what our housing availability is. And, so I see the need for this. The workforce is another story that we're going to hear about shortly, but these are all important issues. So, do we have any other questions of Cindy? If not, Cindy, the process on this being a new request, we will take this under consideration probably this month, and if it's going to be approved, we'll want to have it put into our preliminary levy, which needs to be done by the end of this month. So, just to let you know, and then one last question for you. On page 2 of yours, have you gotten commitments from other agencies yet, and what would happen if a significant one of these decided not to? What would happen?
I'm not sure I can answer that fully about what would happen, other than that we might have to downscope the scale of the study to try to maybe get our foundation of data, but not do as much in terms of the strategies to move forward. As far as who has made commitments, Fargo has given me a range of what they would commit to. I used the higher end of that range because I think just them spearheading this demonstrates their interest in it. West Fargo, their commitment has just been verbally to me as to what their planning department what their city administration would plan to ask from their commission. And the other conversations I've had have just been conversations thus far. I just talked with Cass County last week, and they feel their county engineer, who I was speaking with, felt strongly that they would support it, and he also indicated that another entity that I could talk to that would probably help offset is the Diversion Authority, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Joel Paulson about that yet. We just exchanged phone calls on it last week. So some of this is still just a little bit in flux, but if I don't start somewhere, then it's hard to move forward.
I would hope in your process moving forward, if this all holds through, that you also will incorporate into your study the knowledge that the Clay County HRA has, and then the city of Moorhead also has an HRA. So hopefully you can utilize the expertise that they have in helping come to some conclusions. So
we definitely want to have those people with that expertise on our committee for this so that we can take advantage of all their knowledge.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
We will take a 5-minute break. All right, we will go back into session here, and we will take our next item, and that is Ignite. Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo Chamber Program Overview and Request for Financial Support. And we have with us today President CEO of the Chamber, Shannon. Good morning, Shannon.
Morning.
We also have with us Mason Radebacher.
Good morning, everybody.
Did I pronounce your last name right?
You got it.
All right. All right. Well, good morning, and we have some information within our packets. So, Shannon, it's all yours.
I'm up. All right.
You're up.
You guys all had a break, and now a nice little zucchini flaxseed muffin. We're all ready to go. Okay.
Don't tell all our secrets here.
Oh, sorry. All right, here we go. So without a doubt, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here with you again, talking about what I believe is one of the most critical issues beyond the pandemic is workforce, and you're hearing about this in every single news story out there. There isn't a day that goes by that we don't talk about workforce, and so it's definitely the most pressing issue. 95% of our companies in the 200 I had one-on-one conversations with have said they have significant concern with the ability to attract, retain, and develop talent. I gave you a few examples, just pulled out a couple, specifically in the healthcare field. Sanford Health alone has 325 open nursing positions just for our MSA. And if Sanford and Essentia were able to fill all of their open positions, just in our region, just in our MSA, it would add over $100 million to our regional economy. So this is a big deal as it relates to not just the services we provide, not to mention we just had a briefing and an update from both Essentia and Sanford. As the pandemic continues to linger overhead, there are significant concerns around not so much bed capacity any longer, but staffing capacity and the ability to actually provide service for those that need it. So in order for our region to stay globally competitive, we really need to figure out a comprehensive and systematic approach to workforce and what we're doing.
And so the Chamber's been having these conversations and have been engaged in these discussions prior to Shannon joining our organization in December of last year. If some of you recall, under Craig Whitney's leadership at the time, the Chamber called together an education committee. And it was really, I think, one of the first times our community came together and brought partners from public and private sectors, K-12, post-secondary, large and small businesses all across the spectrum, to really have the conversation and dive deeper into what can and should we be doing as a community and as a region to start to combat the workforce challenges and shortages that Shannon just talked about. And so when Shannon came in, she brought with her the idea of really a fully integrated workforce system of awareness. And that's what we're coming to you all with today. And it's an initiative that you'll hear us continue to refer to as Ignite, FMWF. And so as you can see up on your screen, Ignite is a public-private partnership initiative that's really designed to be a comprehensive, streamlined, and systematic approach to addressing our regional workforce and talent needs. We all understand the constraints and the challenges that we're facing as a community right now. And so to that point, Ignite really helps us further career awareness, exploration, training, and connection between employers and our business community, as well as our current and future talent pipelines. And so when we talk about what our current and future talent pipelines look like, we're talking about engaging with K-12 students, post-secondary and college-age students, dislocated workers, recently released incarcerated individuals, dislocated workers, our new American populations, and really anybody that's looking to get actively involved within the business sector within our community. And so, as you can see, the final point that we have on there, just as a quick overview to Ignite, is that it's really the strategic combination Ignite is between two critically important things. The first of which is a really intentional relationship development strategy. And after Shannon gives a quick demo here of the technology platform, I'll talk more about what that relationship strategy development looks like. Then the second piece that it's combined with is really that robust open source technology platform. Really combined, when we put those two pieces together, we're developing an innovative workforce infrastructure for our community like communities across the country don't have. So Shannon right now is just pulling up the tech demo here, and I'll let her talk through it.
Great. So as Mason mentioned, it really is a combination. We're going to need a comprehensive, systematic approach. So one thing that I talk to numerous individuals about is that here in our region, we are really program rich. We've got great people working on, yeah, that's not a picture I love, but we have a lot of people working on programs within the community. But we don't, so we're really program rich, but we're very systems poor. We don't have a systematic way to connect all of those together. Ignite is that system. So we foresee that this is actually going to be utilized by all of our nonprofits that are working with immediate talent pipeline, our K-12 counselors, teachers, students, parents, any of those that are active job seekers here in the county would be able to access this and be able to look at all of the resources that are available. So this is the front page of Ignite. Essentially, as you scroll through it, it is also an active job board. So this is one thing about this technology platform is it is has high integration capabilities. So it scrubs about 2 million jobs a day, helps to post those jobs onto our site. And those jobs appear based upon the zip code proximity of the applicant or the job seeker. There also are different ways in which, if you are a different stakeholder group, you can easily plug into the system, so it makes it easy to navigate. But we're just going to jump right into an actual login. So when you log in, you will get your own dashboard, whether I'm a job seeker, whether I'm a student, whether I am a teacher, a counselor, an employer. I have my own. So I'm going to show you two examples today. This is the job seeker and the student dashboard, and then I'm going to show you the employer dashboard as well. So at first, when I log in, I am asked to create a profile. Of course, it's not going to. Oh, that's why, because I'm not in as a.
So there's two different ways to log in, or there's actually 5 different ways to log in, depending on if you're a student, if you are a business or an employer, if you are a career counselor, if you're a teacher in K-12, or you're a professor in post-secondary. And so we were just logged into the wrong one here, so Shannon's just switching us over to the student/job seeker one, and then we'll show you the employer one here in just a second.
Okay. So when I first log in as a student or a job seeker, I'm asked to create a little profile. So this tells a little bit about myself. Then I also identify if I'm a student or not a student. If so, it'll ask me what school do I attend, all of those certificates or licenses that I may have. It also then brings you into 3 areas, where the first one is how people describe you. As you start to change these, it changes your dashboard and what you see on your dashboard. So your recommendations are different depending upon how you change these aspects. The other things are what am I interested in? What particular areas do I want to see? The next is what skills do I have? So this is really important also when you take perhaps an entry-level job seeker and they are starting to build skills, or they change their mind in different directions on career paths. They can go in and change these at any time, and then it changes their options that they see on the front end. This is really important for many of our active job seekers, a lot of our nonprofits that work with active job seekers. This builds a resume right along with them as well. So it allows them to edit any of their experiences, their certificates, the skills that they have, education, community involvement. And then a piece that we'll talk about in just a minute is there are about just over 200 online courses that are about 45 minutes to an hour long, 45 minutes to an hour and a half long. They are free. They are designed by private sector, by industry. And once you complete these courses, it populates a badge automatically to their resume, which can then be used as a way to sift through applicants for the employer side of things. So this is the piece that's showing the careers that are suggested, particularly for this job seeker based upon their interest and what they put in. Also the learnings or those online courses that are recommended for them, the jobs that are recommended as well. So if I look at this on the left-hand side, you will see this is all the pieces that are customized specifically for me. Navigation, easy navigation is really important to us. So this allows us to highlight and favorite different career cards, online courses, jobs, so that I could easily get back and see them. But then I can also see multiple videos. There are over 2,000 videos already loaded onto the system. What's a unique feature about this is a crowdsourced system, which means as other regions across the country are putting on career cards, as they're adding courses, those are accessible to everybody that's here utilizing the system in our area. When we look specifically to the careers, the career cards that I mentioned, we have about 1,200 different online video career cards that are currently on the system. I just did web, but you can go in and search by keyword. You could look at experience level. You could look for what's recommended, the job group. So if I'm specifically wanting architecture, engineering, manufacturing, whatever that might be, and then the different career cluster. So you can see as these, when I did web, just a regular web search, these are all the careers associated with anything dealing with web. If I click on one of those, this is one of the career cards. There are multiple videos that are for a web developer. I have the ability to heart or favorite that career card based upon my interest. It also provides more information on this job. It would take them out to my next move, which gives a little bit more background information. It pulls local labor statistics, so we are able to understand what's the local labor market demand for this job, so that I could make decisions around if I want to enter that career. The average salary is also localized to our region, so that we're able to make sure, and we actually have the ability to do checks and balances with industry cluster groups, which Mason will talk about, so that we can keep on track with our salaries. The video that I showed here, I won't play it all for you, but every video is high produced, very great quality video. It's really a person talking about, this is what it's like, the day in the life of doing the job here. What the expectations are, anything that you can think about from that job, it's talked about in this area. Accessibility is really important for us, so every one of the videos has closed captioning. We also will have, when we launch in the fall, ours will also be totally translated into Spanish as well, and we're working on other languages on demand. So if there is a high-level concentration of a particular language that we need to see here, we can add additional translation services and have it translated into other areas. That's really important for our new American immigrant populations. This is a description, further down is a description of the job. This also can be read aloud to the applicant or the student, so that we are overcoming any digital literacy barriers that we may have as well. As we continue to scroll down, now you see the active job postings. These jobs can either be integrated and scrubbed, as I mentioned before, or employers can post jobs directly to the site here. These also will be not just jobs, but all internships and apprenticeships will be able to be posted here as well, so that we can start to really elevate the internship and apprenticeship opportunities, putting them in one concentrated area. This will work really nicely as a technology support for the career academies. So the Moorhead Career Academy, of which I sit on that champions committee, the school district's really excited about this integration as well. And then as we go forward, so an applicant could go, they could see the post, they could apply directly from the site. Every career card also has, these are courses that are recommended. If I'm going to be a web developer, these are some recommended courses. I'll jump into one of the courses just so you see a little bit of it. But essentially the courses, as I mentioned, there are over 200 of them, is a basic of what is cybersecurity. It talks all about it. And then there are numerous different ways you can learn it, watch it, try it. And then this skills survey is where, after all of these are completed, you can actually go in, take that skills survey, and that's when the badge populates to your resume. So it's very, very comprehensive. This particular course was designed by the Department of Justice, the FBI, and NASA, are who put this course together on cybersecurity. So as we go through the career cards and see all of those different options, the other part of it, the final part of it, is it's really important for us to create a continuum and a pipeline. We want more and more of our students to stay here in our region. So all of the local education opportunities for this particular career are loaded onto the system. So we will see when ours are populated. This one is populated to, you see, oh, this is populated to ours. This is MSUM, NDSU, all the different courses are populated in our region. That, again, it's based upon my zip code of where the closest proximity of the college that appears there. So those are the career cards. These are the learnings. As I mentioned, there are multiple offerings, over 200 courses on caring careers. In fact, you can someone can go through and get their entire CNA credentialing through here. So these courses, some of them are built to the Minnesota and the North Dakota standards, so that you could go through something like a CNA course. You'd still have to do your go out and do your practical work, but this piece you could get your studying done right here. Some of it, if it's this is a 12 course. A 12-session course. Some of it is paid content, but most of the videos are completely free for anyone that wants to learn more. There's the active job board, where all the jobs are listed. You could search on job type, the title, the keyword, any of those, and the videos. So I'll take a minute now and log us in now as an employer, and you'll get to see the employer-facing side of this as well. Of course, Mason, we thought we were smart and loaded it in here ahead of time, so we didn't have to do this, but it'll take me just 1 second. It's crazy when you type on a different computer how foreign I actually do know. There we go. So, this is the employer, same thing, a dashboard. When you log in, an employer will see a dashboard. Their dashboard actually looks like this. It takes you through a little on the right-hand side. This is the easy navigation again. It will walk an employer through doing all of these pieces to get ready to utilize the platform. But essentially, this is going to be an opportunity for any and all employers to create a profile. On purpose, we do not charge our employers to have a profile because we know that that's a cost of a barrier to entry for many of our small businesses, our entrepreneurs, and it also distorts the labor market demand that we're trying to make sure that we represent. But when we get in here, employers are able to edit or put in all of their necessary information around address, zip, key contact, email, all of that, description of their company. They also are able to identify or upload any types of collateral information. So if a company has hiring documents, if they've got brochures that talk about the company, or videos where their CEO is talking about the culture of the company, if you want to know more about any of our, American Crystal Sugar could upload their video of their general demo video on here as well. They also identify what industry type they're in. And then this is the most unique feature. This is the feature that it doesn't matter if we're speaking to the superintendents of the schools, teachers, guidance counselors, employers, HR professionals, students, parents, any of them. This is the part that everyone is most excited about. So for instance, the county would be able to come in and create their profile. The county then would say, here's the areas that county employees, so the county itself would say, there are some offerings that we would like to give. We also could put this out there to the county employees saying, if you are willing to speak in a classroom, do mock interviews, host field trips, advisory boards, internships, anything that we are working with our K-12 partners on saying they want as an experience, we're able to add this in, and just with the click of a button, yes and no, it identifies and makes this searchable. So I'll give a perfect example. I just had the conversation with the dean of the College of Project Management at MSUM. I asked, what do they need? They need 200 project management mentors for all of their project management majors. We would be able to go in there, put the project management mentorship in here, and then anybody, any individual that had project management in my profile or in my LinkedIn profile, when I type in project management, that would come up and they could message directly through the system on the back end. So it creates a seamless connection to those that are either providing immediate jobs or future talent pipeline. It's a pretty robust feature in this piece. Then companies or organizations like yourselves, the county would be able to go in and I think one of the challenges maybe with the county is people don't understand what are the different jobs that are offered at the county. The county can go in and through here, they could actually attach any jobs that are associated with that. With the click of the button, they click add, and it adds that job to their profile. So that if I look at the county's listing or posting, they would be able to see all of those different opportunities. What else, Mason? What else do I need to demo on that part? Sure.
And I do believe, all commissioners did have a chance to.
Nearly all commissioners.
Nearly all? Okay.
Yep.
I think we missed Jen. We hadn't had the pleasure of having Jenny with us yet.
Yes, I was at the state fair.
Well, she had a little, she had a little project going on in eastern Minnesota there with.
No worries.
With her, and her kids were involved, so
No worries.
But we'll catch up.
No worries at all. Well, the last thing before we answer questions, and I know we're kind of running up on our allotted time here, I just want to talk really quickly about what the relationship development strategy of this looks like too, because it's critically important to the overall Ignite piece of it. What we understand is that we can have the world's best technology with the world's greatest features, and I think that we have that. But without a really strong implementation process and implementation strategy and partners and essentially boots on the ground associated with that, that technology basically goes nowhere. And so what you'll start to see from our organization too, as we talk about that relationship piece, is propping up and developing a few different areas and opportunities for individuals like yourselves and other business and community leaders from across our region to come together to continue to have these conversations. And so just really quickly on there, you see a workforce advisory council made up of key community partners, investors in Ignite, users of Ignite, individuals that can give us a high-level overview and perspective and some guidance around what are we doing well as a region, what are we missing, what are some other gaps that we can be executing upon or programs for us to develop. Then you see the second bullet point on there focused around industry-based advisory groups. This is in direct alignment with career and technical education. Obviously, understanding that we want actively involved K-12 partners. One of the things that we're hearing is that there are advisory groups for each of these different career and technical education areas. But what's happening across our community is that these conversations and these advice pieces essentially are happening individually within each district and not really happening as a regional conversation. And so if we're looking at workforce as obviously a regional struggle right now, we want to directly align as best we can what students are being taught, specifically in the area of healthcare, for example, one of the CTE areas, with what's being taught in Moorhead, with what's being taught in Fargo, with what's being taught in West Fargo. Then how can we also align that with what the understandings and practices are at the post-secondary level so that all of that's directly aligning with what our industries are looking for. Then the third piece that you see on there are various student and user engagement and focus groups so that we're really listening and being actively engaged with the individuals that we're putting all of this information and tools out there for, so that if we're missing the boat on something, we have open lines of communication to understand what that is and how we can adapt and fix that. Then at the bottom, you can see just some additional goals or initial goals, much of which I've already talked about and what the key focus areas of those three different groups will be focused on. But a couple of things that I want to call out is the second bullet point on there, to develop a teacher externship experience or multiple teacher externship experiences. This is something that I believe the Economic Development Corporation have put on a number of years ago, and it was really impactful for our K-12 educators, where they had opportunities to go out and learn and have some hands-on experience in the industries of which they were teaching their students on. Then at the same time, they were able to come back together with their peers, with individuals from that industry and others that went through similar experiences, and develop really robust curriculum so that students are really learning and gaining the best knowledge that they possibly can in direct alignment with what the industries are looking for again. So with that, happy to kind of pause there from Shannon and I's perspective, open it up and answer any questions that you all may have.
Questions? I comment to both you and Steve and I met with you. One of the things that I'm also interested in is this age-old stigma thing between 2-year and 4-year education. And it seemed that all parents always wanted to direct their kids to a 4-year degree. And I think we're seeing today that there are really excellent opportunities for something less than that. And in the trades area, there are many opportunities, and that's where we're finding a lot of where our workforce needs are. And so I hope that we can also, throughout this process, you talk about career and technical education. It's having parents who are involved with some of their kids' decisions to make sure that they realize that there's some golden opportunities out there for them, and some may not want to have that kind of a long process for education, and also then the longer you're in school, the more expensive it is, and so I just want to point that out because I think there's.
We're actually seeing, so I should give a little background. This Platforms similar to this are being used in multiple different regions and also in some entire states. So this is where the competitive side of this is. The state of Arkansas just launched a $110 million workforce strategy system that is powered by a tool that is exactly like this called Ready for Life. And it is a critical piece that you have both the 2-year and the 4-year schools at the table working. So our agreement that we have, this has already been vetted with all 5 of the college presidents. We have agreements that they will be, letters of intent signed, that they will be used in all of those colleges. It's also been, letters of intent have been signed by our major school districts, Moorhead, Fargo, and West Fargo, as well as now conversations with some of our smaller districts as well. So this is a system that can be embraced and utilized by all. What we're seeing in other regions is that exact piece around the conversation between the parents and the students is having a transformational shift. Students are coming back because this system actually integrates with the rostering systems that the schools already have, so that every student will be able, with a click of a button, to click on the Ignite logo on their dashboard that they see at school already, and they'll be able to pop right into this. What we're seeing is that the students are actually going home and they're changing the conversation with parents because they're able to show these videos, they're able to say, this is what the average salary is, this is what the school requirements are, that type of thing. So it really is a very comprehensive system. A piece we didn't touch on with all of you is we do believe, we know that it's going to be really important that we have investment from the public sector and the private sector to make this work. This is not an inexpensive endeavor. The initial investment or the annual investment is about $750,000, $750,000 for the access, for unlimited access to the technology, for the updating, the training, and the support of that, but then also for that core team, a dedicated person working with K-12, a dedicated person working post-secondary, and then a dedicated person working with the employers and with the nonprofits to make sure that we have an implementation strategy that's strong. So the request to all of you today is for you to consider $50,000 of that $750,000. Some of the other partners, because I'm sure I'll get that question, some of the other partners and the asks that we have out for them. Today, we're presenting our final presentation. We're already approved in the preliminary budget in the Cass County budget for $100,000. So double that, knowing that the population is different for the 2 counties. But also $40,000 request from the city of Moorhead, the city of Fargo, and the city of West Fargo, respectively. So that's about a third of the investment from what I would call our public sector partners, our government partners. We have about another $175,000 of requests to our K-12 partners specifically. Those requests over all of the districts. This is Perkins 5 fundable expenses, so they're able to use their Perkins 5 federal funds for that. So we're working with the districts on that. And then the $320,000 to $350,000 is private sector investment and some additional grants that we'll be doing for this. Some of our public sector entities are also looking at this in American Recovery Funds. Just so you are aware, this is a American Recovery Fund fundable project. So we could definitely look at that as options for you as well as you consider the request into your budget.
All right. Very good. Looks like we have no questions for you.
Okay.
I will tell you, like I've told everybody, that our budgeting process, we go through September now, where we're going to be reviewing internally and externally all of the different fund requests, and hopefully we'll have some sort of an answer for you by the end of this month.
Wonderful. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for your presentation. All right, next we have the United Way Campaign Committee, introductions and campaign efforts. And looks like we have Rita with us, and we have, let's see, who else we have? James and Kirsten, and Lorraine and Tracy?
Morning. James isn't able to make it.
James isn't able,
morning
okay.
with us. Yeah.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Are you the spokesperson? Rita, for-
I am the employee campaign coordinator for United Way here at Clerical.
All right. Well, good morning to you all.
Oh. Thank you for your time this morning. We're going to try and make it quick. I know you guys have had a lot of requests this morning for money. We're here for blessings and information. So we're going to change it up a little bit for you. We want to raise awareness of the United Way committee, or the United Way campaign here within Clay County. And we think a way to do that is to get the board to show our employees that you support this campaign and that it is important for our community. So that's one of the reasons we're here today. Also, I've had this for the last several years, and I believe that more than one head, more than one set of eyes, more than one pair of hands make something more viable. So this year I put together a committee, and I'd like to introduce our committee members. We have Kristen Wignest, Tracy Bedford, James O'Donnell, who can't be with us today, and Lorraine Godin. So they've joined me, and I've gotten a lot of energy from what they've inputted, and I see good things on our horizon. Excuse me. I'd like to do a quick review of our past campaigns. In 2017, Clay County employees raised $15,096.50 for United Way. 2018, it dropped down to $12,284. In 2018, we went to $15,539. Last year, it was a paltry $8,298. It was a challenge last year because we had so many employees working from home with the pandemic. So it brought a different flavor to the whole campaign and reaching out to people. And I think that is a challenge for us right now because we still do have modified work schedules for some of the employees. I think the 2020 challenges were the campaign having problems with the pandemic as far as reaching out to the employees with the more people working from home. We had fewer Jeans Day sales stickers because people don't want to give up their sweats to put on jeans and their sleep pants, you know. So we weren't selling as many Jeans Day stickers to those that were working at home. And I think too, we had a lot of retirees that are tenured employees that have more expendable income than our newer employees. So we lost some of those higher donating folks. So with that, I am going to introduce Val Fechner. She's our United Way liaison. She has been very helpful to me in the last several years, and she's going to wrap it up here at the end. But first I want to go to, Kristen, you want to start?
Sure.
Okay.
Make sure you all can hear me. So our goal this year is $15,000. So like Rita said, in past years, we have met that. Last year, because of the pandemic, it just sidetracked the whole campaign. So we're hoping this year we can get back on track. I think a bigger goal that our committee has is 100% participation by all county departments. And by that, I don't mean that 100% of the county employees have to make a pledge, but our committee believes that there are maybe some departments that have never even seen the pledge form. So our goal this year is at least every county department to see that pledge form, for every employee to return that pledge form, even if it's $0. We just want to raise awareness within our county, within each department, that this very important drive is even happening. You know, like Rita said, we still have employees that are working with some kind of modified work arrangement. So our goal also is to reach out to those employees that are still working at home and try to get them energized about the pledge itself, about the drive itself, and ask them to return their pledge forms as well. A couple different things that county employees can do. Like Rita said, we've had the Jean Stay stickers in the past, and we're gonna do that again this year for those folks that are back on the county campus. And then next Thursday, September 16th, working with our local Hornbachers, we have the Gobble It Up United Way lunch. So for $5, you get a pretty darn good lunch. And we're just asking for county departments to take part in that. And I know in my staff meeting this morning, we talked about it, and we're gonna pre-order and we're gonna eat lunch together. So I just, I'm gonna put this out there to all the other departments that hopefully they take part as well. Thank you.
Kristen, that form you're talking about, is that maybe going to our HR, is that, I remember there's something involved with the open enrollment where you get that selection option, isn't there, Darren? I may be looking back at you.
Yes. Not since I've been
No?
doing it. It hasn't been.
It's not part of that?
No.
So how do the employees get that form?
I put together a packet for each department, or each department head actually gets the forms for each of their employees. And then there's a deadline, and then I collect those forms back. But we've had several departments that we give them their forms and we get nothing back. So. Also, James O'Donnell's on our committee, and he was going to come and speak about department head involvement and the leadership of that and the reflection of how that interacts with employees and their commitment to the United Way. But unfortunately, he wasn't able to join us this morning at the last minute. So that was going to tie in a little bit with what Kristen had to say as well. Tracy, would you like to talk about the media sale?
Sure. The Clay County Media Sale, we've had the sale for several years. It's where the employees from Clay County have the opportunity to donate books, movies, which can include DVDs and VHS tapes for those people that still love those. Music can be CDs, cassette tapes, music instructional books. There's puzzles, games, children's books, anything that people just no longer use or need. They can be dropped off at the government center, and then after that they are organized, and then the employees can come and purchase what we have collected and put together. In 2019, we raised over $120 for just this media sale. In 2020, we raised over $200. So it was, like I said, something that we've had for several years, and it's a big hit. So
And that was 25 cents or 50 cents a purchase. So that's pretty significant. That's a big volume.
It's a huge sale. So donations are being taken at the government center, and we'll send out a flyer to everyone letting them know when the sale will take place.
Thanks, Tracy.
Yep.
Lorraine?
So as a part of the United Way support, so do a school supply drive, which we just wrapped up, I believe, about a month ago. In 2020, the county donated 753 items to the United Way school supply drive. With the pandemic, there was also the shop online option where county workers could essentially provide a cash donation to help supply those school supply items for the United Way. We don't have the total number of online donations that Clay County employees made, but ultimately collected a huge number of items for our kids in our community. 2021, with the school supply drive, we kind of cut that donation in half with 372 items donated this school year. But that was almost over 70 pounds of supplies that we were able to donate to our community. So just continuing to encourage our employees to engage in that, providing areas for them to drop off, and then hopefully if we can continue with the cash online donations, I think that's always a great way to contribute as well. Ultimately, this drive gives students in our area materials they need to learn so that they can have that academic success.
And with that, we'll turn it over to Val Thuckner.
Fantastic. Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to just share a little bit more about United Way. I'm sure many of you are familiar with our organization, but my name is Valerie Feckner. I serve as a Resource Development Manager for United Way, and as an organization, we focus on bringing together community partners, community leaders, donors, and volunteers to find solutions to our community's biggest challenges, like homelessness and hunger, and making sure kids have what they need to be successful in life. And so together we find strategies to break the cycle of poverty and really create a long-lasting impact on our community for generations to come. This year, as an organization, we are focusing and working to raise $5.8 million for our community and for our initiatives, different programs in the community. And so thank you to Rita so much for your leadership over the last 3 years, I believe, working with the Clay County campaign. It has been really awesome to see just the changes that Rita has implemented and the ways that she's worked to rally the employees of Clay County to just really be able to make an impact and a difference for United Way and for the community. And she got together this committee this year as well. And from working with many other organizations in the community, I will say it does help to have more ears, more eyes, more brains, just working together to create something that everybody will be able to rally around and support. And so our campaign this year, that, you know, each year we focus on a different aspect of the work of United Way and the impact. And so our campaign this year focuses on career coaches. And this is a partnership that we have both on the Minnesota and the North Dakota side that help low-income individuals get the skills training, the job training, to make a better life for themselves and to get a living wage job. And so these career coaches work not only with that skills training and the partnership, but also to eliminate other barriers like transportation, childcare, maybe it's food support or mental health support, just those barriers that oftentimes families face living in poverty, and overcoming those to make a better life for themselves and their families. And so our video this year that I think will be sent out to everyone, as well as just our different stories around our campaign, will focus on that aspect. But we, as an organization, we really need our community, and we can't do this without all of you. And so I want to say thank you for the support that you provided to United Way over many, many years, but specifically, as Rita mentioned, over the past five-ish years. And we hope that you will consider using your leadership and your influence to rally other employees and other departments at the county around this cause. We have partnered with Clay County in achieving the work that we do in the community, as well as through this campaign. And so I just wanted to say thank you, and we are very grateful for your support, and we hope you'll consider support again this year.
Well, the nice thing about United Way is it does cover a lot of different opportunities that individuals may have in terms of what their preference might be. It's a good option. Rita, thank you for establishing this committee, and a message to you. You seem to be really disappointed in that low number recently. That is not for a lack of effort. You need to know that. You need to know during this time period there were an awful lot of families that had many other challenges.
Yep.
And so you need to take that in consideration, and it's no reflection on your work.
Thank you.
You need to know that, so, all right.
Thank you, Cap.
Any other comments? And maybe we should have a United Way proclamation day for Clay County employees here. Maybe we can do that coming up before open enrollment.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Commissioner Mojo.
Just a comment, I know so many of the committees that all of us as commissioners serve on work with the United Way in some capacity. And I think it's important for the public to know that the generosity that all of those folks that contribute to the United Way and the programs really help alleviate some of the strain and the requests that we see. A lot of, I personally serve on Lakes and Prairies Community Action, and I know they've been a great partner with United Way in helping with needs in our communities. So it's not just the generosity of Clay County employees, but it really does help with those tax statements as well.
And also, I think 2 out of the last 3 years, our CAP LP partners have been the focus of the video that United Way presents for their campaign that year. So I think this year again, right? It was 2 years ago and then part of it this year again.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
Yeah, so it's right here. It's right here on our campus, folks. Show them some love. Any questions?
Excellent. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Thank you for your time.
Steve, just for agenda awareness here, I'm planning on moving 16 and 17 around. I know if we get close to noon, I know Commissioner Mojo has a commitment she has to be at. Yeah, but all right, our next item is the budget update. Steve and Lori are here with us.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. As you are well aware, this past May, we started the budget process. Over the last few months, we've had our departments that have come to you to present their budgets overall. Lori and I have gone through each of the budgets with them. And today, you do have a packet of information, but for the first time, you're seeing the full budget included with that. And so the first thing that I guess I just want to touch on is we try to touch on this 3-4 times a year. Always during another time during the budget process is good to hear is the sales tax. And so your first sheet of your packet is our sales tax continues to come in strong, amazingly strong. If you look in the middle of the page of the 2021 column there, we have our first 7 or 8 payments. The final payment or the August payment is actually only the first payment. Generally, the first payment, as we've talked about, is the larger of the two, but there is a second payment that is also coming in for August. And just from a standpoint, Lori looks each year and compares what the funding mechanisms were, and you can see from our 2021 versus 2020, we're seeing increases across the board. The only area that we had is on that 7th payment or 6th payment. That's where we received a one-time payment for when they went back in and audited different businesses to ensure that they were paying the sales tax, and so we received a lump sum there.
Yeah, and they didn't break that number out for us, so I just kind of guessed at a number based on the trends. So I subtracted it was 330 is the estimate I made on that for that audit reimbursement.
And so again, this is important for us as the sales tax we utilize to pay back the correctional facility and law enforcement bonding. Because of the strong numbers, we've been able to shift a number of the other funding mechanisms or levy dollars to offset that payment. So I just want to have everybody have awareness there. Does anybody have any questions on sales tax? The next page, I don't really intend to go into a whole lot of detail, but I know back in May, we kind of took a look at the first portion of the year to see where we were revenues to expenditures. We're now 58% of the way through, if you look through August. And again, we continue to maintain a good spot as far as where we are expense-wise. Revenues, we generally see that those fall about 6 weeks to 2 months behind. But going through this with Lori, we did not see anything that was of concern for our budget this year. What has provided a little bit of a challenge this year to the budget process, and I know Darren and Anna are up next, is our insurance went to RFP, out for RFP this year, and we're going to hear a little bit about that. We at this point do not have an agreement in place, or haven't brought forward a company for selection. And so it's a little bit different this year, and that normally would be a little farther down the line. But if you recall, back on July 27th, I brought forward a summary of 2020 tax levy funds that had a percentage of 10.46. We know that was not good enough, and so one of the things that we've done while we've waited to get the insurance information is we've gone through the budgets again. We've also reallocated some of our wind tax dollars back to from the correctional facility to the levy. We also received a dividend from MCIT of $201,385 that we allocated, and also looked at debt maturity remaining at 75%. And that those adjustments got us down to where we are today, which is 9.5%. Now, again, we know that that's not the number that you guys are going to be satisfied with, but with the understanding that the insurance piece, we didn't make any adjustments until that decision's made. Although we're certainly upbeat about some of the information we're hearing. Just to kind of go through the sheet a little bit, the general reserve funds, $26,393,298. Again, from 2021, that includes.
Where are you at, Steve?
Oh, sorry. On that general reserve fund there.
Okay.
Within that, we have placeholders for insurance. That includes about $500,000 in steps for our employees. We have $168,000 of new operating expenses based on the government center and the DMV. And that also does include $500,000 for our capital improvement bond payment. What it doesn't include would be any kind of conversations that we had today with MetroCog, Downtown Moorhead Inc., or the Chamber. Road and Bridge, again, is based off our 5-year plan. Our building fund is at $50,000. That goes to Joe's budget. Again, this is where in the past we would have seen additional funding to go for the repayment for the law enforcement center, but this year we just took that out altogether. The library's request this year is $309,765. We have debt retirement on the courthouse of $325,255 and social service fund of $12,220,647 for a total tax levy of $43,467,688, or a 7.16% increase. There are some additional new requests that we've talked about. If you're on the second form, if you look here, it lays out each of those requests and what department they're from. Unless anybody has any requests, these have almost all been through the PIC committee. So if there's anything specific you'd like to talk about, otherwise that right now that's $438,000. And we also look at as a potential COLA. We do have one bargaining unit that has settled on their contract for next year at 2%. And from a historical standpoint, this board has generally followed those percent increases. That gives us a total levy of $44,576,972. We did receive a little bit more county program aid than last year at $3,935,730 for a spread levy of $40,641,242. We did recognize 1.28% of new construction, which has been pretty consistent from what we've seen for the last 4 to 5 years. And that gets us to that 9.5%. And so what I did want to show you is we went through this, the statement of revenues expenditures. If we go through this document, one of the things that when we look at this, the first four categories in this document are the ones that really have the biggest impact or have the impact on our levy. We included the building fund in there, although we don't really like to touch that because we have issues to utilize those funds for. But when you look at our revenues over expenditures in the general levy, of that 2 million last year, about 1.2 of those are balance increase was based on CARES funding. And so again, that was a one-time deal, which left about $805,389 of an increase in the fund balance. Road and Bridge, again, as we talked about, I think earlier this year, the payment for here is going to be recognized actually next year. It just came in late, and so this will be actually a zero. And then Social Service had revenues over expenditures of fund balance of $291,206, and that's so altogether that gives us an increased fund balance in those levy areas of $1,148,526. I bring this just from a standpoint is that I know that the board doesn't take lightly going into reserves and offsetting the levy, but knowing that that's giving you all a better idea of kind of where we ended last year.
I have a couple of questions. So the general levy had a $2,005,389 revenues over expenditures, and that was attributed to the return of some of it, excluding the $805,000, was reimbursement from CARES.
Right,
correct?
well, we got almost 1.3 million in CARES funding right at the end of the year that we actually paid out to the area businesses, that last round of
That
CARES
business
funding.
relief.
So, but we actually recognized the revenue in 2020, but we paid it out almost immediately, so that left about 800,000 that was actually revenues over expenditures.
Whatever happened to the 1 million that we reimbursed ourselves for?
That would be within this, we would have recognized that, yeah.
Within each department, what
Correct.
you allocated a percentage that, most probably the
We
public
didn't
health.
allocate it within departments, but within funds we did, so we had to break that out into a little bit of road and bridge, some social services, and
Okay.
And so we did, the next packet is, in talking with Lori, just to kind of give you guys an example, one of the things that we're hoping today is that you're going to give us a directive and a target to get to. And so we just put a couple documents here together, some example summaries from a tax levy fund. And the first one would be again, without going into a lot of great detail, from an insurance renewal savings, if we were able to see a $1 million savings, that would drop the total levy down to 6.78%. Again, the levy point this year is about $367,000. And the second document that you have in front of you would be an example if you utilized the $1 million savings in insurance renewal and also an additional $500,000 of fund balance, and that would get you to 5.41%. And with that, I'll yield for your directive.
I like it getting lower. The $1 million insurance, before we had anticipated under a normal situation of probably having an increase of about 600, wasn't it, that you had in the
right,
original?
that's what I currently have in the budget was.
Yeah, that's the one where we're at 10.5 net right now or something. That had the 600,000 in it. I think I can speak with some level of certainty that what we're going to end up with for 2022 is probably going to see a negative premium increase.
That's kind of.
I can't get into too much of the specifics on that. We'll hear a little bit more from Darren in a little bit. I question whether it would get down to be removing the whole 600 plus another 400.
Well, we had, in the actual salary calculations for each department, there was also 4% increase in there. And so if you add the 600 that I put in, plus it adds up to
Okay.
about 300,000 additional.
Okay.
We're at 900,000 plus
Okay,
a little
so
bit.
that's where you came.
Right.
Okay. All right. I still think we should use some of our leftover money to buy this down.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I say this, you've heard me say this
gonna
every
steal
year.
it. I
Okay, go
stole
ahead. Okay,
Frank's.
go ahead.
Revenues over expenditures. Commissioner Campbell wants to know.
Well, we know that,
Yeah,
know there
I
are
know.
some, and yeah, I think we have some room to bring that down in that regard, and we still have some other discussions. I still want to talk about this board from a long-term strategical planning process, and Lori, I haven't had a chance to talk to you about this, but in our insurance committee, you know, we're talking about these potential savings, and there's also maybe some long-term ideas that we may want to at some point go to self-insuring. That's been something that's been brought up by our advisors, that it might be something, because we're getting to be a large enough county right now. But part of that, the concern that I would have in that self-insuring is the first year you go into it, you can potentially have significant claims coming in before you have your premium dollars to cover it. And I've always, you know, my thought is that we should start preparing for maybe investing similar to what we have in an internal service fund, where we take a portion of money and we start setting that aside for that, when that change comes, so that it's easier on our employees and easier on our citizens who are helping pay for it, because usually there's a 50-50 share in that cost. And so I think at some point, I hate to see us just all of a sudden take that entire $1 million and say we're going to deal with that. And what also that would do is it would, on years when we don't have this negative return, and 3 or 4 years down the road, it allows us to buy down any potential increases if we didn't go to self-insurance. And it kind of goes to your theory, even with the elections, where rather than having a big dollar amount in one levy cycle and nothing the next, you average it. And so, you know, so that's kind of where we've had some of that talk, and I was hoping to bring that to this board to consider, you know, so that would, that $1 million, if it were me in a perfect world, I'd like to see, let's make that 800 instead of $1 million. I know that deals with the levy, but I still think we have room within our revenues over expenditures from last year to buy down, to make this more affordable for our citizens. Because quite frankly, you know, when we're looking at even a net of 5.41 on this proposal that's here, I'm concerned about what the cities are doing, what the townships have to do, and what the school districts have to do too, and that all comes into play on our citizens. So I've said my piece for now. We have ways to go. If you want some direction, as far as I'm concerned, get it down some more.
All right.
But I'm only one. Yeah, Commissioner Mojo?
Thank you. I'm a little concerned about the new construction piece, that 1.2%. And I know you said that's kind of the average for the last 4 years, but, you know, I think that there comes a time, hearing all of the conversations about workforce and EDA, and we have to be really careful about out-taxing our future growth. And, you know you know this, we've had these conversations. I think 1.28 is great, but I don't know if it's enough to be sustaining. And in a year where it doesn't take much to see how the drought has affected all of us, but particularly our ag partners, who really are, you know, huge contributors to our tax payments. I'm struggling with just continuing to increase what we ask of people. And I know that the pandemic has hit landlords particularly hard, and all of us in some sort of capacity. And I really encourage you to have conversations with our departments to look critically at areas that, you know, yes, we didn't use our training budget last year because maybe we were at home or on Zoom, but are we continuing to use it in 2021? I'm not sure that all of them are. And so at what point do we continue to keep that earmark? You know, and maybe it does mean get creative and find out where you can save. I know as a CARES committee, we looked at different areas to help streamline county business. And, you know, to maybe quote Frank again, you know, when people come to us and say, well, not much changed in 2020, we still did business as usual. Did we? You know, I think a lot changed. We were in a pandemic, and how we deliver services really changed. And does that still mean that we need to have this high level of taxation? I'm not sure. And so I agree with Kevin. I appreciate that you've gone back and found some savings. I would hope we can cut another couple %. I know you are magic workers. Just my opinion.
I know Commissioner Gross isn't here today, but I've spoken to him about this budget, and I know that he'd probably like to see this be somewhat less than even the net 5.41. And but I think come back to us and next week with some lower numbers.
Will do.
Any comments from you? Okay. Well, it's a good start, and I think our board's going to have some dialogue about a couple of presentations today that I think need to have some considerable consideration, and then how that has to go into this too. So, or do we look at a one time outside for this right now to see how it goes, based on the fact that they're also depending on other communities' support. So, those are some options that we have. I think our bank accounts are healthy.
Yeah, we're in pretty decent shape. So.
See? There we go. All right. Thank you both for your efforts today. All right, let's, we have a couple things that hopefully we can do quite quickly here. The mediation settlement, is that something that we can do fairly quickly?
Yeah, we should be able to. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Most recently, I guess here a couple of years back, the state of Minnesota, specifically Ramsey County, brought forward a case against Nelson Auto Center in Fergus Falls under the Minnesota False Act claim. The plaintiff provided information that the business overcharged law enforcement agencies on over 3,000 transactions. Within those transactions, 24 of those vehicles were Clay County's. There has been a settlement that has been reached that would repay Clay County about $158.06 per transaction, totaling $3,793.44. Based on that settlement agreement, Clay County has to indicate in writing whether or not they consent or object to the agreement. With the understanding, if they object to the agreement, then we would be responsible to carry it forward with our own legal team. And so I've talked with Sheriff Empting and Mr. Melton on this issue. From the documentation that the sheriff was able to find, we looked like we were probably about $5,364 or $5,364.72 was what we were overcharged. So there'd be a difference of about $1,571.26, which Mr. Melton said that's his morning time salary. So
could we take it to court for that amount?
No, I think that was what we talked about would be is to carry that forward would cost us more to try to obtain those funds.
Right. I think my recommendation, after hearing from Mark too, how much we were out, it seems reasonable as a settlement offer, and so I'm asking that the board would approve it and allow me to sign what's on the back side, which is the settlement election. I think we should pick the first one, take the settlement side of things instead of objecting. As Steve has said, if we were to object, then it would be up to us to go forward on our own with a lawsuit, which I don't know that we would get that much more anyway. So it seems reasonable to take that at this time.
So your recommendation is the first one?
Correct.
All right. Yes, Commissioner Ebinger.
Yeah, I'll move that we direct the county attorney to accept the settlement on the form included.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ebinger, second by Commissioner Kaylee. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. All right, we're going to move into item number 14, update on health insurance request for proposal. And I know, based on our information, we're going to be somewhat vague here today because we have some situations still pending. But good morning, Darren and
Good morning.
Anna.
Good morning.
I'm not going to call you Amanda this morning.
That's okay. I answered anyway.
Did you do that one?
Yes, I did.
Multiple times.
That's why I said it. That's why I
I've been
said
here
it.
a year and a half. Give him a break.
You know, yeah.
It's all right.
Anyway, good
That's
morning.
okay.
Good morning.
Commissioner Kaylee wanted to have me give a quick update on the insurance committee meeting that we had last week. And as you probably know, the Lakes Country that we currently have went out for RFP, had 4 responses, 2 of which were viable bids. One was from the Blue Cross Blue Shield, and then also Lakes Country Co-op, who actually will be switching to Medica. So I know we want to get through this fairly quickly, and a lot of this I have covered in other meetings with the board. So we do have, it's a good problem to have of deciding which negative number that we want to take and which plans that we want to go with. We did have an insurance committee last Tuesday and had our NIS consultants come and talk to all of the insurance committee members on the RFP process and what the findings were. Since there was a lot of information to be absorbed at that point and some decisions to be made, plus the unions and people had to go back and talk to their members, we decided to put the vote off until next week. And next Tuesday, we're having another insurance committee meeting to come up with a vote. So, but we wanted to kind of give you an update that it's still an ongoing proposal. We have some good rate guarantees for the next 3 and 4 years, and we'll get into a lot of that coming up when we have the vote for the insurance committee and then bring it to the board for final approval. So let's see if I forgot anything in my notes here. I don't think so. Both plans have pros and cons, and that's kind of what we're deciding on, what are the best pros and the best cons of each of these programs, so these plans.
Amanda, do you have anything to add?
I think Darren Darren did touch on a lot of that. Like he mentioned, the proposals do come with future year caps, so we would know well in advance what our cap would be for the following 3 or 4 years. Can't share rates yet, but yeah, they are looking very promising regardless of which option is selected. Regardless of what's selected or recommended by the committee, there will be a slight change. Like if we went to Medica, every employee would have a new card. If we stayed with Blue Cross, we would have a new group number, so every employee would get a card too. But we are trying to make it as little disruption to the employees as possible.
We do have to make a decision pretty quickly because we're coming up on open enrollment, and if we are making changes, that's a lot of work to do between now and
Yeah, I have a pretty tight
middle of
timeline.
October. So.
Oh, we know that both of you have been doing an awful lot of work and trying to provide additional materials for all of our insurance committees and then spreading that out through all of our staff throughout the county. So thank you for your work with that.
And the one thing that should be pointed out that none of the plans will be changing as far as deductibles and plans and all that. The RFP that went out had all of our plans the same. So you won't have a big wide variety of plans. They're all basically the same 4 plans that we have now. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Any other questions?
Yes. Commissioner Gaylor.
Do you want to talk about vision real quick?
Sure, want me to go ahead?
Yeah, sure.
So, we also had to go out for RFP for our vision insurance. That was, I believe, a 4-year plan that was up at the end of this year, so we went out for RFP. Our consultants did present on that. We are asking for a little bit more information, like a disruption report, local providers, based off the recommendation that they briefly provided last week. We just didn't feel we had enough information to move forward, so that will also be touched on next week's meeting, and we can present to the board the following week.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, Darren.
Okay, thank you.
See you in 2 weeks.
All right, next, tax abatement. And this goes back to the discussion from a couple weeks ago, I believe it was.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair.
Bryan, Brunette.
Yes, Mr. Brunette came to the board during Citizens Be Heard, expressing concern with discrepancy between his assessed acreage on his property and what he's paying on his taxes. This board asked our staff to take a look at that, and we met with Lori, Nancy, and Matt, and agree that the research did show the legal description of the property and the assessed tax statements did differ. The legal description is the record, or the document of record, which is 1.844 acres. And so the findings supported Mr. Brunette's claim. He's subject to reimbursement per this Clay County tax abatement policy, which when we look in the valuation drop of about $5,700, there'd be a motion to abate total of $170, $58 from this year, $56 from 2020, and $56 from 2019, which allows us the current year and the 2 previous years per our policy. And so with that, I would yield for any questions.
Any questions? Commissioner Muggle.
I see that we're limited on the amount of years that you can go back on it. And at what point did Mr. Brunette, did he bring it up this year, or had he brought it up in prior years?
My understanding, Matt, is that he brought it up this summer, is the first time that he became aware of it. So we did have discussions with him on this issue earlier in July, and provided him the recourse to get the funding. Our abatement policy generally requires that the citizen put forward a written document, which Mr. Brunette at the time was more concerned, or wasn't concerned with the funding as much as he was about the difference in the legal description and the acreage. That was his main concern.
Yes, absolutely.
My concern is that if we know that there's a discrepancy, why do we wait for a landowner to submit the documents? Wouldn't we want to make sure that it was correct?
Absolutely, we would. That's what we had just asked him to do, was based on our abatement policy. That's within the document. In this case, we did not. And after his request, he had inferred that, or he had told us he didn't necessarily want the money. But based on his coming forward last week, that's why we're here requesting the abatement without a letter.
Well, again, within our statute authority, all we really have the authority to deal with are the other years that are listed here. Am I correct in that?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
So had he recognized the error earlier, that could have been handled in previous years.
That's correct.
Okay. So what we have here before the board is a recommendation, I believe, to repay the $170 for the corrected property description value, I guess, for a better
Legal description.
legal description, based on our statute authority to do so. Commissioner Ebinger.
And just adjustments have been made to the record, so this
They have been.
correct assessment is made in future years.
Any further questions?
I would move that we abate the parcel in question for a total of $170 per the Clay County abatement policy.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Kaylee, second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Right, we're going to start our committee reports. I guess we're going to keep with our, Commissioner Mojo's just leaving for a few minutes and she'll be back. She wants to be here for the closed session. So with that, Commissioner Kaylee, would you like to start this morning on your committee reports, please?
Sure.
We did make that vote, right, on that last motion? Yeah. Okay, Commissioner Kaylee.
On the 24th, following our board meeting, we had a Clay County employee picnic. Thank you to all who helped plan, set up, serve, clean up, and bring meals back to your coworkers for that event. It was a beautiful day and it was really lovely to gather together and share a meal. On the 26th, I attended the homelessness roundtable, and Commissioner Gross was there as well. Representatives Keeler, Marquardt, Senator Eakin, and Representative Gomez from the Twin Cities, as well as Chairman Michael Fairbanks from the White Earth Nation, were there, help leading that conversation. We talked about different programs such as Homework Starts with Home, some of the new bills that went before the House this year, and State Senate as well. From the Department of Corrections, Kate Erickson, the director, talked about some of their data in what they're seeing with homelessness in regard to their customers. And then Chairman Michael Fairbanks also gave an overview of some of White Earth's work surrounding homelessness and the ways that they are working in different communities to prevent homelessness and also to work towards a future without homelessness. At that meeting, then after the presentations, we broke into small groups, and there was a ton of passion in the room. There was a bunch of professionals and community members and stakeholders all involved, and so it was a really great, robust discussion. We talked about a variety of different things, and all that information was gathered and will be compiled. And then these meetings will be held around the state as well. So after this statewide task force was created this year, a shelter task force with HF 900, then this is some of the information that they'll be using to work towards ending homelessness in Minnesota. On the 26th, I also attended the CAP-LP board meeting. We approved new and amended policy and procedure manual for I wrote 2021, but it must be 2022. Anyway, including their new remote work policy. We approved the 2021 risk assessment and a Mardeg Foundation grant, and which includes $84,000 for a senior navigation program. That sounded really exciting. We approved a Bridge to Career Pathways grant, which includes welding and CNA courses that CAP-LP, which is our community action partnership, Lakes and Prairies here. Pathways to Prosperity on-ramp grant had $100,000 for high school diploma and English language classwork. There was also and approval of a continuation of a federal grant application for Clay and Wilkin counties for the Head Start program. We approved the Head Start policies for 2021 and 2022. And they have also moved to a large portion of their staff to a new building in Bellesley, and they will be having a ribbon cutting for that on September 10th. Then on the 30th, I attended the Trauma Sensitive Schools training in Holly. That was put on by Heather Simonich, and she talked about different types of trauma and how that shows up in children. One of the areas that was discussed in depth was the overlap between how PTSD shows up in youth and ADHD. And so when we're looking at kids in a classroom and some of the behaviors that they might be having, it might look like ADHD, but it could actually really just be PTSD from some of the trauma in their lives because it shows up in the same way. There was a really powerful discussion and great questions from Holly Public School staff as well as staff and administration from surrounding school districts, including Ullin and DGF. And there was also some future teachers from some of our area colleges there as well. On the 31st, I attended the insurance committee meeting, which we just had an update on. And September 1st, I met with Mason from the FM Chamber about the same Ignite project that they were just here presenting on today. Also on the 1st, I had the Moorhead City Planning meeting. That was a really interesting one. We had a request of Prairie Hill Investments for a vacation of a right-of-way within Village Green on the 6th edition. So what they were doing there was there were 2 cul-de-sacs on either end of a block, and they decided to take those cul-de-sacs out from the original plan they had and make it a through street. This will improve snow removal through that community, and it also increased the number of lots available in that section. It went from 34 lots to now 44 lots, and that'll match the surrounding development as well. So everybody seemed happy with that. There was a request for a rezone of 801 2nd Avenue North from residential moderate density 2 to downtown mixed use. That's the Fairmont building right at the top of 8th Street there. It used to be owned by Eventide. It has been sold. So part of the newer addition, I think, if I'm remembering clearly, is being removed and redone. It's going to be housing units in there. So the idea is, as we look towards a revitalization of downtown, making it more walkable and livable, we want people living walking distance from all of these new businesses that are coming in. So that's going to be a really beautiful housing unit. They're going to preserve the historic building as well.
And that fits in with part of their plan where the 500 units, apartment units or condo units available within a certain number of years, right?
That's my understanding, yeah. So that's going to be great. We revisited a previous request from Carol Tepley on 815 Main Avenue. So that's right next to that new Epic building across from the Dairy Queen. It used to be many years ago a Discontent. It's the bright orange building. So there were some concerns about the parking situation there because they don't have their own access into the parking lot. Their customers have to pull in through that Epic building to go then and park in that building. So it sounds like there is a good plan in place, and there was a parking survey done, and so that was approved.
And that was a reconsideration.
That was a reconsideration, of the rezoning request. They moved from community commercial to downtown mixed use. It's essentially adding one more office in that building. And then we talked about the proposed sheep grazing pilot program up in Oakport. And there were a few citizens that attended that had some concerns because when you look at the policy initially, it was written quite broadly in case like one of our universities wanted to use this on some of their property in a different area down the road. But what's going to happen is there will be a small number of sheep, maybe around 30, that will be moved around to some of these big open grassy prairie areas in Oakport. They will be fenced in. A lot of the fencing will be temporary, so it will not inhibit the public's use of that land as park land or detract from just the view of the native prairie that's out there. But this is going to be a really great tool for management of those grasses. We know that our prairies evolved to be grazed. So using both controlled burning, which they did this year very successfully, and the sheep grazing, we hope to see what the environmental benefit is and the benefit to decreased maintenance costs as well. So it's exciting to see how that happens. That's going to go on for a few years and then it will be reevaluated.
So Commissioner Cayley, I read a little something on that. So this is, does this have a certain area within the, I know right now it's referred to as the Oakport area. It's now the annexed area. That was Oakport. And so this applies to only certain geographical areas?
Yes, this is only being tested. I'm going to see if I can scroll down. See if there was a map.
I know I'm going to get questions on it.
Yeah. In the, if you go to the City of Moorhead Planning Commission page and download the agenda, there should be a map towards the end, which will outline the areas in question.
They're mostly, are they publicly owned lands?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So there are, and I can't pull it up right
Yeah,
now,
I don't.
but it's on there. They have a few areas outlined, and it's just grass prairie, publicly owned land. There are residential properties on one side of the road, and then it's grass on the other. Yeah. And the sheep will not be there year-round. They'll only be there for about 30 days at a time before they're moved, because we don't want a buildup of manure or smells or anything like that. And if citizens had any concerns, they could call, and those will be dealt with. So the policy does talk about if there is an issue with a buildup of manure or smells or nuisance or whatever, how that will be addressed. So, yeah.
Okay.
On September 2nd, we had the Clay County Joint Powers Committee. Took updates from all those attending there. There was a good discussion about the new MAPS Career Academy. They have 2 sections open, and there are 5 students from DGF, which are taking classes at that Career Academy. I know there's been a lot of questions about how that's being billed out, and we were told that they will be billed, per student for the number of class hours, was my understanding that they're attending there. This is very much a pilot project as well, these 5 students, because all of our different school systems use different programs to track attendance and do grading, and then we have one school that uses a block schedule, and another school uses a 7-period daily schedule, and so those don't necessarily mesh well, but they're working on the logistics of all of that, and everybody just seems really excited and thrilled to have this resource in our community. So thank you to our school districts for working on that. We also talked about the intergovernmental retreat, which will be coming up And we're looking at the last Friday in January, so January 28th. We would probably start around 9 o'clock. People could show up early for coffee and conversation, and we'd go into the early afternoon. Over the weekend, I had several conversations with city council members, just on different, Moorhead city council members on different things that are coming up, including tobacco and other things, just to hear where they were at on those. Oh, also on the 2nd, I had the Clay County Collaborative meeting. I'm going to pull up that agenda because we heard overwhelmingly that it's been a long time issue that several agencies or organizations that are getting funding through the collaborative have not been turning in their reports in a timely manner, which makes it very difficult to do the collaborative's reporting. So there's a new policy being put together which states that partners and organizations must submit reports and invoices within 60 days of each reporting period, and failure to do so will result in funds for that period being forfeited. So any funds that would be forfeit would then go back into the pool and could be reallocated to other organizations that had funding requests that were not met yet. So that concludes my reports. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ebinger.
Thank you. On August 24th, after our commission meeting, I also attended and helped pitch in at the employees picnic, and good time was had by all. I did draw the veggie burger line, which made my part of the task much easier. Didn't have a lot of demand.
Well, I had the cheese line, and everybody wanted cheese. So.
Even the 2 veggie burger?
Yeah. No, I don't think they did. There were more than 2 veggie burgers. Okay, I'm sorry.
On Wednesday, August 25th, I attended virtually attended the Diversion Authority Finance Committee meeting with Mayor Carlson, administration meeting, or a meeting with the finance chair, Mayor Dardis, and the board chair, Mayor Carlson, along with the finance people, to get that clarified. We discussed latest MOUs and some property acquisitions. The following day, on the 26th, I attended the Diversion Authority Board meeting at Fargo City Hall. Again, the topic of the Fargo administrative fee was discussed, and the meeting with Finance Committee Chair and finance people was set up. We discussed General Spillman from the Army Corps of Engineers visit the previous week. It went well. Council John Shockley discussed the alternative dispute resolution plan that was put together for property damage that might occur to property holders after the completion of the diversion during the operation. A general consensus, and this would be for damage less than $50,000. The general consensus on that was that the upstream the Minnesota North Dakota Upstream Coalition be removed as having hearing officers assigned to that group, in that every county involved, including the upstream counties, already had hearing officers will be selected by elected officials. So that passed with that change. Also, we discussed the financial close with P3 is due November the 15th. That'll wrap everything up and we'll be full bore into operations of building the diversion. On the 26th, Thursday, Darren Brooks and I attended a meeting with Shannon Full and Mason Rademacher at the Chamber of Commerce offices. It was a good meeting, covered the Ignite FMWF that was presented today. 27th, we had a tour at the Red River Dispatch Center, Red River Regional Dispatch Center, including myself, Commissioner Campbell, Steve Larson, Mayor Carlson from Moorhead, Mayor Joy from Holly, Mayor Tollefson from Glendon. We had representatives from Moorhead, including the chiefs from all the Minnesota cities that are at the dispatch center, and Sheriff Empting. Toured the dispatch center. Mary Philippi, the director, and Assistant Director Amanda Gleason provided the tour. Presentation was given covering the history of the RRDC, current needs, governance, status of the activities to build a new dispatch center. Also, some concerns that have been expressed and some concerns about how complaints are handled were addressed. What came of the discussion, one ongoing complaint that we received over Barnesville incident involving the AirMed helicopter was determined that RRDC dispatched that within a minute of receiving it, and that the concerns about the time it took fell over to the actual operations of Sanford Medical and the helicopter. We also determined that a written complaint form would aid in tracking and accountability, and Director Philippi is working on that. On September 1st, Wednesday, myself and Commissioner Campbell attended the Diversion Authority Board retreat at the Dakota Medical Foundation. We discussed the transition of the board from one of planning and budgeting to construction phase, discussed communications, trust, and governance. John Shockley covered a history of the joint powers of the diversion, as well as diversion authorities, or the actual flood needs and diversion authority history. We had a very good meeting, was moderated by Jeff Shantz, the former Fargo school superintendent, and a lot of it had an eye on policy development. And that completes my report.
Thank you. One thing about having a retired cop on the same committees as you, he gives good detailed reports, and then I don't have to.
Just the facts, sir.
Well, you write it down. I have a tendency to try to keep it here. All right. For myself, on the 24th, we had a Diversion Authority executive meeting, and that was some discussions about planning for the retreat and some of those issues that come up. On the 25th, we had a Prairie Lakes solid waste meeting. The good news there is that we were originally looking at needing to have like a 5.5% increase in our tipping fee. Based on us resolving the insurance issue and some other things, that tipping fee number is going to be down around 2%. So it's a significant difference. And the plant is going very well. That facility did not have a vacation donation policy, and the employees came before our board requesting that we implement one. So I thought that was really amazing that they volunteered on their own behalf to help right now with somebody who was in need of some help. So we obviously passed that immediately to use the same vacation donation policy as Otter Tail County, and I'm assuming that's very similar to the one we have here in Clay County. We had a solid waste advisory committee meeting on Thursday the 26th, and we got an update from Tom from Construction Engineers regarding the project. We learned more from Jeannie Given from MPCA regarding what is still needed to be done to get our CAP grant signed. So I think we're getting closer and closer to that. And we had a few updates from Kirk. Let's see, then that same day, we had a diversion authority meeting, and Commissioner Ebinger has described that well. And the same with the regional dispatch tour. I'd never been in that facility, so it was really good to see that and get a firsthand idea where it is now, and based on the criteria and the anticipated needs, where it will need to go. And they're two completely different things right now. So it really shows that that dispatch center is outlived. Well, good afternoon. Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Just for the public, I saw an article this morning in the forum about an employee at the dispatch center who received both the Historic Award and the Life-Saving Award, and how many of the employees there actually have engaged in that kind of life-saving and great emergency response. Very much for a lot of the people in rural counties where there's a slower response to get first responders out there with equipment and an ambulance. I was also gratified to see the young lady in question is a resident of Holly, and let people know just because it's in North Dakota doesn't mean that they aren't employing a lot of Minnesotans over there. But just a great story if people haven't seen it.
Good, I have not seen that yet, so I'll look forward to reading it. Thank you. On the 31st, we had the insurance committee meeting, and Commissioner Cayley reported on that, and you heard a little bit from Darren on that, so I won't go into that anymore. Wednesday, the 1st, we did have the Diversion Authority special meet. It was basically a board retreat that went from 8 to noon. It was one of those retreats where I really felt it was worthwhile. Sometimes I'm not a real fan of retreats, but this one was really good, and Dr. Schatz did a really good job in that, and it really did give us, opened our eyes to the direction and change that we're gonna need to be looking at moving forward. That's always good to get that feedback on what we need to be concentrating on. That afternoon, we had a building committee meeting, and items that we discussed, there's the area on the dental area. They're looking at wanting to expand that area on the first floor, right, Steve? And it's a golden opportunity to us, and they've come up with I think the number was that they're looking at maybe investing up to $1 million in moving forward with expanding that location. So it's great for us. It also then becomes additional square footage income to us in years going forward. So it seems like a really good option. We did review the security plan project that's been talked about a lot. And then some capital bonding. Joe gave us some capital bonding project timelines, and I got a little bit of an update on some detox issues from Steve. Then on the 2nd, we had the MCC GAPA, well, excuse me, in the morning we had the Clay County Joint Powers, and again, I'm gonna withhold comments because I think it was well reported by Commissioner Cayley, and the same with the MCC GAPA meeting that was held, and that one, of course, had Commissioner Ebinger, Commissioner Mojo, and myself all serve on that. That's a public board meeting, and so I don't need to report on that anymore. And then I think that covers it for me. And Commissioner Mojo, I think you had mentioned you didn't really have any committee reports.
I just had the MCC JPA, which has been reported. Thank you.
All right, so with that, Steve, do you have anything?
I had just a few things that
Okay.
just to follow up.
I'm going to start calling you VJ pretty soon. That's what he said. We just have a few things.
Well, I'll skip through. I'll try to hit the high points.
No, I don't. You just do it.
I participated last Tuesday, or 2 Tuesdays ago, in our appreciation picnic, and thank you for the board and our department heads for the effort, and the EAC committee for putting the effort into that day. It was a great day to celebrate the good things that we do here. County management, the next morning, we talked about COVID-19 updates, the budget 2022, remote work, the security plan. We had an update from Rory Schmitz on some technology things. Also based on a request from the chair, I did ask just from a comfortability level from staff of how they're feeling with COVID-19. We had multiple comments with the structural changes and social distancing capabilities. They feel very safe. Again, the cleaning, the touchless fixtures are all benefits. Many departments shared that they continue to utilize Teams when social distancing isn't possible. And some talked about utilizing masks, specifically in the juvenile center, correctional facility in the Detox. We did have one department that was a smaller department. They expressed concern because they're so small that we're making sure that people are wearing masks when social distancing isn't possible, so they don't lose their entire department. On the 25th, I met with Trenton Jareds, for the executive director of the Cass County Land Trust. I left some information in your boxes. He took over for Tim Beaton. Tim had been here a couple different times over the last couple of years talking about their program, and we'll probably look to have Trenton come here sometime this fall. On the 25th, I met with Sheriff Empting, Kelvin Benson, and Will Smethers from Michelle Fishbach's office. We talked about law enforcement legislation and the impacts that they're seeing, and we also talked about the border city issue pertaining specifically to Minnesota use of force, which was good for Will to hear because he was not aware of those issues. On 25th, we met with Nancy, Lori, and Matt following up the Bryan Brunette concern, a department head evaluation that day. The SWAC on the 26th, which has been covered, met with Lakes Country Co-op when they presented their proposal for renewal. Also met with Joe Olson for the upcoming building committee. 27th, we toured the Red River Regional Dispatch Center, which has been covered in detail. Sheriff Empting Mary has sent out the updated census information, and so that will most likely be before this board next week. Again, we did see a decrease in the percentage of our formula, but that will be coming forward. Lori and I had a couple different meetings with Ellers and S&P on the bond sale. It is out for sale right now. They will be collecting them through the 13th, and they will be bringing those to board here next Tuesday. Participated in the insurance committee, that's been addressed. Met with Kathy McKay on a series of public health issues, also Dan Molly on the resource recovery facility. Next morning, I talked with Matt Evans and Ben Madsen in regards to the resource recovery center, and then talked with Bryan and Kirk in regards to the development of the contract with the city of Moorhead and the county for the regional facility. Bryan has now finished the first draft, and we're going to run that through MCIT for their additional feedback. Participated in a webinar with Gabe Tweeten and Roy Beal, hosted by Minnesota Homeland Security Emergency Management, giving updates on what's allowable for COVID and FEMA spending, specifically with congregate care sheltering. We had ongoing insurance discussion with Darren, building committee, which has been addressed. We had a meeting with the Fargo-Moorhead Administrator Group. We talked about workforce issues, the Red River Regional Dispatch, census information, and met Tim Solberg, the new West Fargo Assistant City Manager. On the second, we had Clay County Joint Powers, which has been addressed. That afternoon, that morning, worked with Clean on the agenda for today. MCC JPA that afternoon. Friday, we worked on budget presentation. Just a reminder, there's a vaccination clinic tomorrow. It's by appointment only. They can go to the website for either Pfizer or Moderna. And again, just a reminder, there's no boosters. I'm looking for a date to schedule for our rural city and county meeting. I sent a doodle request out to the board and I think many of you have responded already, and so I hope to have that set up by later this week. And then just following up from last week on the Resolution 2021, which updated our post-issuance debt compliance policy and procedures. Bryan did review that and approved the review. And that concludes my report.
All right, well, it's always nice to have nice, young, new guests joining us for a meeting. I just wonder if Greeley would like to say hi to everybody. Want to say hi to everybody?
What's your name? Oh, Greeley Moshow.
All right, so with that, we will now go into closed session for ongoing contract negotiations. We will come out of closed session and immediately adjourn after that, because there will be no action, will there, Bryan? Adjourn? Oh, there will be action? Pardon me?
There would be.
Okay, so there will be action taken. Okay. Very good. Do we have a motion to close?
So move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Mojo, second by Commissioner Ebinger. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. All right, folks, we are back in session. And we have one remaining action item based on our closed session. Commissioner Ebinger.
Yeah, I'd move that we authorize the county attorney to sign the contract with the assistant county attorneys.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ebinger, second by Commissioner Cayley. I just want a note of clarification. Who normally signs?
It will be the Steve Larson and yourself.
I think we just might want to just clarify that motion, that it would be our county
Administrator.
administrator.
Okay, my mistake.
Okay.
Yep, that means with my second.
All right, very good. Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. We are adjourned.